let's get started with the work session today. It's November 13, 2024, and time is going by really fast, and pretty soon we'll be in the middle of the holidays. It already feels like it sometimes. In attendance are Director Art, Director Nelson, Director Hayfleet, Director Antis, Carey, Jurgensen, and Milpakan. All 7 board members in attendance. Superintendent Gall is here, joined by Chief Odom and some of his district administration people. We have a couple of work session agenda items today. The first one of it is going to be the Power School Enterprise Solution Opportunities. Tom Hunt is joining us, and the Power School team is also here. We will come to the introductions in a minute, but I'm going to first turn it over to Superintendent Gall to set up this conversation.
I'm super excited to bring this multifaceted team to the table. This has been about a 6-month formal conversation that we're now going to bring to the board, but for a couple of us at the table, it's been about a decades-long journey. And it is fortuitous and opportunistic that Jess Gardner is here as the leader of Allevue, who is now a senior leader on the Power School team as part of their suite of services, that I really think makes this such a unique opportunity for us to capitalize as a school district on the strengths of the relationships that we've had, but really to forge a new future into what we believe we can do with data. And so you're going to see in this briefing a couple of different main themes, but I really want you to think a lot about the power of data that has been untapped in the education sector, and the ability for us to properly serve our immediate needs on things like ERPs and some of the other actual credentials of programs that we actually use with Power School. You'll also see a very cross-functional team of our team that's here. You'll see Tom is here, Chris is here, and Brandon is chiming into our ears right now as the CRO. He's in Denver on his way back with some of the observations that he's had here on this being a unique opportunity for the school district at this time. Waiting for Tom to turn back around for me to say, and to Mr. Tom Hunt.
Okay, we ready?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, and you may want to introduce the team as you go.
Yeah, we have that all planned.
Okay,
Perfect.
we'll start off with the D11 team, and here's just the high-level D11 team here with Dr. Milpakan from our board and Mr. Gall, superintendent, and the rest of the folks who have been involved in this effort. Chief Odom over here from operations. I'm not sure if Chief Comfort is here.
He's coming back from Denver.
Okay. I'm also involved in that, and of course, so I am as a senior executive director for IT. So it's been a great journey working with this group from Power School, and I think I'll just turn it over to Power School and let them introduce themselves to the board and to the rest of the D11 community.
I go first. I get the honor. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Brook, Chief Customer Officer at Power School, and excited to have the opportunity to come meet and chat with folks today. So thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. Shivani Stumpf. I'm our Chief Product and Innovation Officer at Power School. Excited to be here, and thank you so much for having us. I'm going to pass it over to Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess Gardner, formerly the founder and CEO of Allevue, and now the Group Vice President over the ERP and Resource Planning Division at Power School.
Deanna?
Hi, I'm Deanna Kowalczyk, I'm Regional Vice President for Power School. Oversee account management, have been working with the district here for a couple of years now, and very happy to be here. Thank you for having us. Christine?
My name is Christine Curtis, and I am the Customer Success Manager for D11. I've been working with this team for a few years now, so excited to be here with you all. Thanks.
I am Mac Donahue. I'm the account manager for D11, so I work on Deanna's team and parallel with Christine. So thank you for having us.
Appreciate thank you Power School staff for coming down and being part of this. I know you had to rearrange your schedules and travel probably from great distances to get here, so really appreciate you having you on site. So let's just get started, and we'll just see right into the agenda. And I'll just go ahead and turn this over to Chief Odom to kick us off with this enterprise partnership agreement.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for coming. Welcome. We have so much excitement about this opportunity, and I hope the board feels the same excitement at the end of this presentation. We're going to cover a little bit about the RFP update for the PeopleSoft replacement. Later on, Tom's going to share the value of connected intelligence and what that really means with a single source of truth for all data and additional connected data opportunities that this opportunity brings. We'll explore enterprise solution agreement value adds and expanded connected data benefits. We'll wrap up with how we could have a modernized ERP that we co-build with this team, and then we'll wrap it up with next steps. So from a RFP perspective, we issued an RFP to replace our existing ERP system. And that's fundamentally known as PeopleSoft. It houses our financial data and our HR data. When we issued that, we conducted a thorough investigation. We had extensive sandbox testing. We had numerous technical reviews. We had a team of probably 15 plus people that evaluated the proposals and opportunities. But ultimately, we were being challenged with the need to have a data-driven, connected intelligence, modernized opportunity. So when we were going through evaluations and we down-selected to the top-ranked firms, we entered into negotiations with each of the top-ranked firms to see if we could get this opportunity for one source of truth, connected intelligence. And we're going to explain to you the value of what that means in the next slides. But we couldn't get to a product that would realize a futuristic, modernized ERP function. So we paused on the solicitation. We investigated this opportunity as we have an existing contract with PowerSchool. They were one of the top-ranked firms in this RFP. And ultimately, we have canceled the RFP because what we had has changed. Our vision for a modernized ERP is not what it was 8-10 months ago. So with that, we have explored an opportunity we're going to highlight later on in this presentation to bring you a modernized ERP system that will have connected intelligence and be able to cross-functionally identify reporting capability that is going to greatly benefit our district now and into the future. I'm going to pass it back over to Mr. Hunt to give us an idea and an overview on connected intelligence.
Great. Connected intelligence is PowerSchool's kind of answer. It really is kind of their answer to one of the holy grails in education, and that's basically using data to inform instruction and create these personalized learning experiences for all students. I was at a conference about 7 years ago, and there was a couple of engineers from IBM there. And their dream was to say, let's take Watson, because they had been working on the Watson project for IBM, and said, we want to ingest all of the information we can about a student and create robust learning supports and personalized learning for these students. And as you may have known or may know now, IBM is really not one of the front runners in this field because they don't have the systems of data. They may have had the compute power, but they didn't have the data behind it. PowerSchool has the data behind it. So PowerSchool has not just the ERP, not just the SIS, but several other applications. And all of those applications, if not now, will soon be eventually integrated into connected intelligence, which is that single source of data. All things about a student, all things about our staff, our operations, includes internal data sources that PowerSchool is connected with, and we can load up our external data sources, for instance, CMAS and STAR data. Right? Those additional data connected opportunities come from the PowerSchool ecosystem, and we'll talk more detail about all the products they have and how that could impact and give opportunities to District 11 down the road. that informed this ERP effort and this connected intelligence vision, our connected data vision of our superintendent and others, basically kind of informed kind of a new strategic vision around connected data. And really it is let's empower education through this connected data source, connecting all of the data that we can on students and creating those personalized learning supports that can prescribe, predict those learning supports that are best for students. Oops, what did I do?
Oh God, I exited.
Yeah, actually, what I did was hit the wrong button, sorry. There's an escape key on here they didn't know about. Okay, hang on. Oh, okay, thank you. As Chris just mentioned, part of this strategic vision is this modern PK-12 tailored ERP system. Once again, that's something that is not in existence right now, but we believe that collaborating with PowerSchool, we can get there. And by the way, those data sources from that ERP are all part of that connected intelligence data support. And then finally, right, looking at the entire ecosystem of PowerSchool, the question is, wouldn't it be nice not to have the 10 or so products that we really are embedded with right now with PowerSchool, but to have access to all of their top tier learning supports and use the connected intelligence to use all of those data sources to inform our instruction. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn over to Shivani, the Chief Product Officer at PowerSchool, to talk about those data points that we know about kids and how this fits your vision.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. So usually the slide is animated and I would pose a question to everybody in the room. And of course we have the answer up there, but I would ask, how many data points do you think as an industry in a school system do we collect about a single student, right? And think of everything from the student's attendance to the academics, to bus routes, to their food plans, the demographics, the assessment scores, their college and career readiness plans, the staff that supports the students, the funding that's available to those students, the special education accommodations, you know, and we go on and on. And as a result of all of the research that we've done, we see that there's 170,955 data points and counting that we have about a single student. So then we ask ourselves the question, well, you know, we've talked about personalized education as a K-12 system for so long, and why is it that we've not really made that much of progress when it comes to truly personalizing the educational paths for every student? So think about it. We have teachers in our classrooms. A teacher has on average maybe 15, 20, 30 kids. If each kid has 170,955 data points about them, how is it humanly possible for a teacher to really take those 170,955 data points and create personalized paths for each one of those students? And that really defined our vision to bring all of this data together from all of our PowerSchool and non-PowerSchool systems that are used in a K-12 district, bring it all together, cleanse the data, and start creating these personalized pathways that truly can help us achieve the nirvana of making sure that every kid can excel. We use their voice and choice to define how they have agency with their learning experiences, how we can empower every parent with the information that they need to support the kids during the educational journey, how we can support every educator to give them back time by helping them create these personalized pathways depending upon what support every student needs, how do we provide every administrator with the resources that they need and the information that they need at their fingertips. And that is really the partnership that we're excited about and the shared vision that I believe we have with D11 and Superintendent Gall.
Great, thank you.
I'm just going to chime in for a little bit. I've been on both sides of this as a superintendent and in the ed tech industry. And what PowerSchool is talking about here is a first of its kind. The data is the goal. Most everybody else, it is the licensor, it is the number of, the size of the contract. And then having sold this stuff before, there's not even an interest of whether or not you use the interface to its maximum capacity. What PowerSchool is talking about here is, yes, the interfaces, we're always striving for them to get better. We want them to be easier. They should be as simple as every app on your phone. Every company's striving for that. This is the first time that I've had a relationship with a company that says the data is the goal, because getting this data will allow us to do the thing that we actually all have the hunch for. Most of us have a hunch about every individual student that we meet, but we don't have all of those 170,955 data points. Today I learned of a family of a student that the attendance issue seems to be matching the custodial relationship with the family court order. I'm certain that the teacher probably has an indication of that, but it's not really in the teacher's realm to be thinking about how much can they step in and out of that space. So if I could just match attendance, even with my STAR data or my Schoology assignment completion rate, I'm gonna be able to find out something that I don't know. We have really smart people in the system. Dr. Wise highlighted to me that we have an apartment complex that's within walking distance of a Title I school whose families won't let the kids walk to school in the rain. Now, they're within the policy that says they have to walk, but if I can just get a bus to go by there on a rainy day, because those families don't want their kids to walk to school. That's one individual that figured that one piece out about one attendance monitor. We're doing a lot of attendance study right now. You can pick any of those things at the bottom and now connect them to every other data piece. And what collective intelligence will actually allow us to do is actually just ask the system the question. What do I not know about Sophia Malpacum? What am I missing on that? What's different about Sophia at Doherty than any other junior at Doherty? And it's gonna spit it back out for us, which will give us, as I always think, the ability to get the dollar closer to solving the problem. Instead of the way most of education works, I love the work that we're doing, but we have a couple of attendance strategies that we're gonna try, and they're gonna take 6 months for us to figure out, and then we're gonna make some adjustment to them instead of getting hyper-targeted on exactly solving the problem as fast as we can. And again, if I really think about achievement, when a kid leaves a classroom, why is that child not on that learning objective? What do I know? Who were the other kids that were not on that learning objective? What's the commonality between those children? Maybe they all had me as their teacher the year before, which is why they're not on point. Maybe they all get a chance to have Sandra as their teacher and they all are on point. So I'm not sure everyone quite understands that everyone else in the sector only looks at this as, did you or did you not buy my product? And Power School is looking beyond the product and thinking about what the product represents, which is a data point for a student. Now, we've all had, some of us had them in ledgers, and we had little grade books and we carried them through. This idea of congregating that data, I think could really, really accelerate how you close the achievement gap and how you sustain it over time. Sorry, Tom.
Good transition. This is essentially what our superintendent just talked about. We have disparate, many data sources, usually not connected. And what connected intelligence will do is bring that into one data source. And then the analytics and deep analytics we get from AI will allow us to get deep insights from that will fit in with our district roadmap to excellence and help us with that best first instruction, student achievement, engagement of our families and our students, etc. I did want to go back and talk a little bit about the Power School story. And when most of us in the district hear Power School, we go right to the SIS because that's typically what Power School represents for most of our users and our stakeholders. But Power School is much more than just the SIS. And I'll let our Paul Brooks over here.
Tom, can you just say SIS, what it stands for?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
There are people listening who won't
Thank
know.
you. Yeah, that's our student information system, right? So that's all the information we have on our students essentially. Tracking attendance, grades, classes, etc. So Power School has had a student information system and SIS for many years. They have basically expanded that through their platform over the years, and you can see some of those expansion efforts. We'll talk high level about this, but you can see that they basically expanded into almost every area that impacts K-12 education.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, I'm actually going to defer to our Chief Product Officer.
Yes.
It's a little better
I can talk
position.
about this.
Yeah.
So as you know, and you may be familiar with some of those names on the slide over there, but Power School's been around for a really, really long time. We've been around for 27 years. We were actually owned by Apple, and that's what Tom is referencing. We have a very, very strong and rich history with the student information system. However, we've always had this vision of personalizing education for kids, and we realized that in order to do that, we wanted to put a best-in-class ecosystem in place So we started on this journey of acquisition, and our strategy has been to acquire and or build best-in-class, best-of-breed products in each one of those verticals. So we started with the SIS, the Student Information System, which is the heart and soul of how we collect data within the school district. We then moved on to special education and accommodations, ERP with Business Plus and eFinance Plus. Then we moved on to classroom products with Schoology and Performance Matters. Then we acquired analytics products. We went on to acquiring behavior products and products that track and notify parents about attendance issues if their kids are not coming to school. And then we further went on to acquiring one of our latest acquisitions was AlloView to help districts understand how to budget, allocate, and manage their finances. And so we've been on this journey of acquisition, and over the last several years, we actually have transitioned from the systems, the transactional systems, to putting a platform in place and connecting all of these different systems together, these best-of-breed systems together, to provide our customers with one source of truth for the data, one consolidated, cohesive user experience with what we call My Power Hub. So as a parent, as a student, as an educator, I don't have to log into how many parents in the audience over here? How many products do you need to log into on average if you want to understand, did your child go to school, what their attendance is, what their grades are, what their assignments are they due?
Where's Director Nelson? So, you're right next to her. Director Nelson will give you a whole earful on that.
We can do better.
We can do better,
We can do a lot better.
even with our current products.
Yes.
And so that really is, connected intelligence is our answer for the one source of truth for data. My Power Hub is our answer, which hopefully you will all adopt now, is our answer for that single pane of glass experience. And Power Buddy is our answer for the single consistent AI experience for everyone in education. So you don't have 5 different sources of truth with different AI experiences across the board.
Great, thank you, Shivani. The next slide, if I can get this to work.
We need to lift the laptop for you.
Sorry.
There we go,
Thank you,
Tom.
Melissa.
So I was going to talk to this slide and talk a little bit about the partnership, the relationship, the journey we've been on with D11 over the course of the last 5 years or so. That ultimately started with us deploying the underlying student information system, delivering personalized learning to the classroom through Schoology, LMS, and Performance Matters. We've helped provide key insights into attendance and behavior. We've provided faculty and staff with additional learning and development, personal professional development opportunities through our professional learning product. Our Smart Find Express helps our administrative friends in those times where we've got to address shortfalls or short-term staffing needs. And of course, AlloView has helped the finance organization significantly in terms of resource planning, allocation planning, and ultimately budgetary work. So, I mean, personally, I've had the pleasure to work with Tom over the course of the last 2 years that I've been with PowerSchool, and I can definitely talk to the strength and depth of the partnership that has really seen us grow and expand the PeopleSoft, the PowerSchool platform across the district, but most importantly into the classroom, where I do believe we're starting to see the benefit of giving teachers time back from the mundane tasks to be able to spend time on focusing on insights as well as student outcomes. So as we think about, and Tom, if we can go to the next slide, we think about sort of what does the journey look like ahead of us here as we think about the next couple of years and 2025 and beyond. The one area that I wanted to focus on, and Shivani, you touched on it just briefly, was My Power Hub. So this is our leading edge engagement and communication platform that really creates that digital fabric to help better connect the district to the community, to faculty and staff, to parents and guardians, to kids, to their grade and their work and their performance, and really bringing together all of that data in the disparate systems that we've spoken about into a single unified space, which is only ever going to be one click away, providing that actionable insight. So we've also got a number of other key initiatives on the docket. Shivani's spoken to Power School AI and the value that that's going to add as we layer that on top of each of our solutions. Analytics, MTSS, plugging back into connected intelligence, being able to provide that actionable insight, and really that level of data and specificity around the student that the folks can really focus on.
Thank you, Paul. Our school has done extensive research. Yeah, thank you, Melissa. And maybe you can go quickly and just kind of summarize some of that research you've done and how it kind of connects D11 and aligns D11 with some of your work.
Yeah, so we every year we go through a pretty extensive survey. We can move on to the next slide, Tom, in interest of time. 1,600 educators from around the country. We surveyed them on what their top priorities are, and you would not be surprised that a lot of the top challenges in education are pretty common across school districts. You know, we're all seeing impacts of chronic absenteeism, all seeing the impact of, you know, not maybe having students as engaged as we would like them to be, not being able to have that easy engagement for parents. You know, what came really through our survey was, let alone students, even some of the parents are not reading or writing at a 5th grade level. So when we're really sending out communication to parents, are we sending out communication in a way that is actually understandable by them? And then of course, this big focus on data being the fabric, and how effectively are we even using data within our K-12 ecosystem. And so really for us, you know, what we're really excited about, and we've been partnering with D11 already on this. You guys have been amazing thought leaders in the space with us. With this enterprise partnership is bring really the value and the power of this transformative technology that's now upon us with generative AI. We've launched Power Buddy for Learning within our Schoology platform for students. So think about even going back to maybe when all of you were kids. Think about the power if you're stuck on a problem or a homework assignment, and that student who may not have their parent at home or that older sibling at home to help them with that homework problem. What if they had an on-demand 24/7 AI assistant with all of the safety and guardrails built in that would keep them on task and provide them that one-on-one guidance in a way that takes into account all of their accommodations. So if they're an English language learner, potentially explain the concept to them in their native language. If they're dyslexic or they cannot read, do the text-to-speech or speech-to-text, right? Am I asking the question on the science assignment because I missed class yesterday and I was absent? Or am I asking this question because I lack the mastery and proficiency? We have all of that data now to be able to do that and to give teachers time back, as Paul mentioned. So really excited about that. Speaking of the educator, Power Buddy for assessment will allow teachers to basically create assessment items using one click of a button. Think about teachers today, especially ELA teachers, if they're creating if they're creating passages and having questions off of those passages, how much of time does it actually take for them to create those passages themselves? And I don't know about you, but I've never seen an item bank for CTE and how important CTE is going to be for work-based learning moving forward. Now we have the opportunity for AI to help create those items for an educator. Similarly, Superintendent Gall spoke to this, but how many of you would like to just ask the question, show me all the students who were absent last week and also received D's and F's on the most recent math assessment? What if you can just ask a natural language question and the AI do all of the writing of the query and the analysis and bring you that analysis? We have that with Power Buddy for data analysis. Who would like an AI assistant to help them fill out a FAFSA? I feel like I'm educated, I have a master's degree. I don't think I can navigate the FAFSA. I don't know how our students are navigating the FAFSA these days. And so we have Power Buddy for CCLR that is gonna help kids fill out the FAFSA, navigate through that process, alert them when they have scholarship opportunities available, and alert them for college and career opportunities that are right for them. This is really the promise of AI that we're bringing to every one of our solutions that's live in general availability today. And I'm really proud to say that D11 has already partnered with us on a number of these initiatives. So we're really excited about the impact that we would collectively be able to make. All right, and then, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about behavior interventions and parent communication. I think we've already talked about a lot with My Power Hub and why we're excited about bringing that parent engagement to the mix. And also the disruptive opportunity that we have right now with proactively identifying behavior incidents and making sure that we can align MTSS interventions for positive and negative behaviors, academics, attendance, and more. So really excited about bringing all of this together. That completely aligns, I think, with the top 10 priorities that D11 has.
Yeah, thank you, Shivani, for sharing that research. We're going to now get into the nuts and bolts of this enterprise partnership, and I'm just going to set the stage here. You basically saw through Shivani's products discussion and Paul's discussion about the whole platform that PowerSchool has many, many different products that they offer. They have a pretty wide ecosystem, including the ERP and some of those other things that we're going to talk about shortly. We are implementing currently about 35% of their available product line, okay? This radar graph illustrates that, and it breaks it down into what PowerSchool calls clouds and platforms. So they partition these solutions into 6 clouds and 5 platforms. And this radar graph basically shows you our current state of D11 in terms of which of the product and the clouds that we're basically immersed in at this point with our adoption of PowerSchool products in District 11. So current state, around 35% total adoption. To get the return on investment is tricky, so we're going to call it a return on learning, and we're going to basically use some graduation caps to illustrate symbolically what those learning benefits can be. So you can see that kind of in the legend there. And what this PowerSchool ecosystem will allow us to do, and this partnership with PowerSchool will allow us to do, is even just a few months from now, potentially expand this not just to that 35 set of solutions, but to maybe 70% or more of the possible solutions from PowerSchool. And you can see that we're expanding not just in that student information and student success cloud and personalized learning cloud, but we're expanding now into some of those other clouds and platforms, which basically means we're getting close to our superintendent's vision and that 170, 955 or what it is, data points in every kid. We're getting closer to that, right? And adjusting all that data into one system. A year and a half or so from now, it could look like this. And this now basically includes some of those platforms and clouds that we haven't seen very much activity in, the talent areas and the resource planning areas. That's the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Tools, essentially HR and finance and related tools. And then looking about 3 years down the road, right, we could potentially expand into practically all of PowerSchool's available solutions and products. And so the opportunities here are immense, and that return on learning basically escalates every year that we basically implement some of these new products and solutions. I'm going to transition now into not just what the product expansion looks like, but what is the cost of this effort. And so I'm going to have to talk a little bit about this slide to ground this, because there's 3 lines on this graph. And the bottom 2 lines, the one in purple, or maybe in magenta on the screen and orange, represent kind of the current state of D11. And we have an a la carte, basically, purchasing model from PowerSchool. We look at the products, we decide which ones we want, and we contract with them, and we work to do the implementation, professional development, et cetera. So we implement it. But it's an a la carte model. And by the way, those bottom 2 lines also include current status using our PeopleSoft ERP. As you know, we canceled that ERP migration effort, right? And so PeopleSoft in these bottom 2 lines would be that ERP solution, okay? The difference between the purple, I did it again, Melissa, sorry, wrong button. The difference between the purple, okay, go back. Yeah, the difference between the purple and the orange line is the purple kind of represents a state before we had this state CDE funded grant for attendance intervention, and before we were doing this early adopter testing rollout for behavior support and for Schoology AI. So that represents a state before those opportunities presented themselves. So that's kind of the current cost, if you will think about it moving forward. The attendance intervention system, behavior supports, we know that those are some district priorities, part of the ABCs that we talked about earlier this year. If we were to expand those, along with the PowerSchool Schoology AI, to all of our schools, that's essentially what, I did it again. That's essentially what the orange line represents, right? So we extend AIS, attendance intervention, the behavioral sports, and the AI to all of our schools. That's what the product licensing would look like. The very top line represents what the enterprise partnership licensing costs would look like over the term of this kind of 5-year period, okay? So, and by the way, that blue line now includes not PeopleSoft anymore, but moving forward with Business Plus, the ERP system from PowerSchool, and having access to all of those PowerSchool products, that entire ecosystem of PowerSchool, and connected intelligence working in the background to process and making sense out of the data. Just to show you kind of what those opportunity costs are, so to speak, the bar on the right, basically that purple bar on the right, the bottom right says, for that amount that you're seeing in that leftmost tagged item over there, the 1.9 million, we're getting about 35% use out of PowerSchool. For an additional couple $100,000 plus, we can bump that up to 40% of their available products. If we go a little bit more with another couple $100,000, we actually get access to another 60% of PowerSchool's available solutions. And these are the things that we've been talking about, the connected intelligence tools, the powerful AI, the CCLR supports, these other supports that to date D11 has not been implementing. So there's lots of opportunities that are going to come along, and you can see the differential in costs that we would have to pay to get these new opportunities. Okay, moving forward, we know that the board was very gracious and generous to give us $3 million to do an ERP migration. You know that the ERP effort is canceled, so we are going to propose that we move forward with the ERP migration implementation to Business Plus. So we'll use some of that $3 million set aside for that implementation. But we've also done a lot of thinking about what other products, what other services, what other training would we need to be successful and to adopt these PowerSchool products and make full use of PowerSchool's ecosystem. So we've given this a lot of thought. This is kind of high level and subject to change, but it does give you an idea that we've been doing some thinking and we have an idea of how we can most effectively spend that money that you set aside for us for this ERP effort and extend that beyond the ERP to get even more bang for our buck, so to speak, with these other products and implementations. And at this point, because we're going to talk about the ERP, I'd like to turn that over to Jess because Jess will frame this conversation on the ERP much more effectively than I.
Thanks, Tom. The other thing I'll call out about this is, as the budget lady in the room who's obsessed with school budgets, nothing irritates me more than when a school board is told this is the cost, and then there's extra. And so when we were having the initial conversation about this partnership, I said, if I were a school board member, nothing would irritate me more than if we approved this partnership and 6 weeks later they were back saying, oh, by the way, we need $2,000 for PD, or oh, we forgot the implementation cost of this, or oh, we forgot to add in training for this. I said, that would really annoy me as a school board member. So we really took a hard look to say, what do we think is the true total cost of ownership of this, including factoring in a 30% buffer for what I would call unknown unknowns. As you can see, PowerSchool's been very acquisitive over the past 10 years, and I expect that will continue. So we also built in about 30% of this budget so that you can continue to take advantage of things that we couldn't put a value on today, and it would already be part of this budget allocation and contract. So all that to say, your team has been incredible in really thinking through all of the details of the total cost of ownership, which I know as a school board, thinking about your fiduciary responsibility in a partnership like this, we wanted to make sure that you knew that all of those things were really accounted for. I want to share a little bit about my background and how I came into this role and where we're going with the future part of this partnership by telling you a little bit about the past. So it was actually about 12 years ago this month that I came up with the idea for Alloview. And it was 100% born out of my experience as a classroom teacher. I taught middle school in Baltimore City Public Schools, and I spent a lot of my own time and money buying the stuff I actually needed to do my job. I say this as a way of confession. to tell you that everything I'm about to say from here on out is part of a very, very, very elaborate ruse to make sure that none of your teachers are at the dollar store at 9 o'clock at night, like I was, maxing out their credit cards so that they can teach their lesson on the Roman Empire the next day. So, to Mr. Gall's point that, some of these conversations have been 6 months in the making, but some of them have been upwards of a decade, and this component of it is certainly a decade in the making. And it started with Alleview, and over the past couple of years, we saw a real shift in school board and community and legislative interest in school budgets, in no small part because of ESSER and the spotlight that the stimulus dollars put on school budgets, as well as those dollars going away, and the variety of economic pressures that school districts are facing as a result of enrollment shifts, decreased birth rates, changes in immigration patterns, changes in state legislatures and economic and social political contexts. All of these things are making school board conversations about budgets far more complex and difficult than arguably they have been for the past 50 years, which means that the tools and the solutions that you have to analyze resource allocation decisions have never been more important. And I don't anticipate that those challenges will get any easier over the next decade either. They're really only going to get more complex. And so we had this vision of what we could do with the future of ERP. And I think about resource allocation in K-12 as a combination of money, people, time, and tangible assets, which is the fancy way of saying stuff, like the chairs and the tables and the computers and the books. And right now, there's no ERP in the country that can work with a district of this size, including our existing ERP, that was developed this century. Now, that was a cute joke in 2001, maybe in 2002, but on the eve of 2025, that's not so cute anymore. And the reason why that's important is because the technologies and the data architecture capabilities and the data interoperability and AI capabilities that we have at our disposal as innovators and builders and product leaders today were not in existence 30, 40, 50 years ago when some of these components of ERP systems were developed. Now, until pretty recently, that's been like, okay. Because until pretty recently, school district budgets were pretty consistent. You added a couple percentage points to the top and rolled everything over, and everything pretty much stayed the same. And the accountants could kind of hide in the back room and do their budgets, and people didn't really pay all that much attention to it. But for all the reasons I just mentioned, as a result of these shifting population and demographics and social, political, and economic contexts, suddenly we're having much more rich, detailed, nuanced conversations about budgets. And the old systems are not meeting the moment for the new challenges, which means it is our job as partners to bring new solutions to life for you. Now, I'll give you a very simple example of what this looks like. I say money, time, people, tangible assets. Let's think about the example of building a school schedule. Is building a schedule a budget exercise? Offhand, you might say no, right? It's a time thing. But guess what? All the people that go into those course slots in a day, that go into those scheduling blocks, have a salary attached to them, have a benefits package attached to them, have a certification package attached to them. So now, all of a sudden, we're talking about an issue of time and people and money. So I want you to imagine a scenario where a school district CFO could say, okay, show me what this schedule costs. And they'd say, well, Chief Comfort, this schedule would cost this high school $2.2 million, but 37 freshmen will not be able to take Algebra 1 with this schedule. So now you have 37 students right off the bat who are not on track to graduate high school on time. And we know from your other data that it's gonna cost you $10,000 per pupil in remediation classes in 3 years to try to hustle them to the graduation stage. Now, this schedule, on the other hand, costs $2.35 million, but all of your students will be able to take algebra and be on track for graduation in 4 years. That is actually the more cost-effective budget, because we are able to use data interoperability, AI, and other components of these data systems to be able to look at the whole picture, to not just look at Miss Jones is teaching one section of algebra, but to really understand holistically how these pieces of resource planning and strategy fit together to give you an effective and solvent school budget that also is ensuring that your students are on track for success by your own definition. And that piece is really critical, because everything that we have developed to date and everything that we will develop from here on out is about putting the control in your hands to configure what success looks like for your students at this district. Okay, so that's my big sci-fi vision for what the future looks like in Ms. Gartner's head in 2012. What does this look like for the Power School and D11 partnership in 2024? Right now, we can implement Business Plus. It's a very good ERP system by every measure and as evidenced by your own team's evaluation through an open, competitive process. Very good is personally not good enough for me. I have a very high standard for the quality of products that my team builds and puts in front of education administrators, because I believe that you're doing the most important resource allocation work on the planet, and for that, you deserve the most advanced, pioneering products that we can give you to do the best job of your capabilities. So we have these existing modules that will make a marginal improvement on your current operations today. They will be better than you have today. That is still not good enough. My standard is that you are 10 times better than where you are today. And that is where the part of this partnership comes in, where we are talking about building the future of K-12 ERP together, where we would work together as partners to build the future of what an ERP system can be and do in the 21st century for K-12 administrators. No such thing exists. There is no ERP on the market that has been purpose-built for K-12 leaders in the 21st century. But we have the vision for it, we have the leadership for it, and we have the partners to bring that into reality in actually just a couple of years. So our proposal for how we do this is that we implement Business Plus and we use that as the baseline for our future innovation. And then we work with you over the years to go module by module and organize a rebuild of these modules until you have a completely new ERP system. Do I have any Greek mythology nerds in the room by chance?
Wait, we have a doctorate of Greek mythology, so I wouldn't quite call that a nerd.
No one ever calls me out for that.
So
Aficionado.
if I say ship of Theseus, does that mean anything to you?
Sure.
Okay. See, finally, someone gets my nerdy analogies. Can you explain to them what the ship of Theseus philosophy is? I'm really putting you on the spot.
You're
so you
really
can-
putting me on the spot. Are we
If you
talking
can't do
white
it,
flag
I
or
can.
black flag?
All right, I'm gonna give you the non-PhD version of this. So there's this philosophy in Greek mythology that says if you had a ship and you replaced every plank on the ship, would it still be the same ship? And that is basically what we are proposing with the ERP redevelopment. We are gonna go through plank by plank, line of code by line of code, and replace it with something that is 10x better and better equips the district for doing your jobs in the 21st century in a world where we have data tools and systems and AI capabilities to really create a categorically different experience of resource allocation. So you have these core modules like finance and accounting, procurement and purchasing, inventory and warehouse, payroll and compliance, budgeting. And we can go through module by module and rebuild for today's needs, new solutions. So we've already done this with some of the AlloV products. Our team has experience doing this, where we take a baseline module and we say, we know better and we can do better now. So you already have some of the existing AlloV products in place, which basically serves as a starting line for the future of what those micro application experiences would look like moving forward. We already have on our 2025 roadmap some new solutions like a budget book, doing enhanced reporting around HR analytics, more position control integrations and enhancement, connecting the financial data with the student outcomes data in our analytics and insights products. And we're going to add a couple more of these things to the list by the end of the year as well. Then over the next couple of years, we're looking at complete and total innovation in the realm of grants management, procurement and contract management, integrations with these other PowerSchool products in the suite that you will have access to, inventory and warehouse, payments and accounting, payroll. And again, when I'm talking about a rebuild here, I'm really talking about a reimagining of what is possible. So Mr. Gall will give the example of, I don't just want a schedule that works. I want the best schedule that works for these kids with these teachers to provide the best outcomes based on our definition of success at the district. That is the vision for the future of where we are going with ERP technically stands for enterprise resource planning, but I call it education resource planning is the future of what we are building here. And there's no better partner to bring this vision to life than D11 because you've already been such a critical partner in bringing new solutions into reality with us, and this is really the next frontier. And not only do I know that this will be transformative for D11, this is something that will be transformative for the entire nation of K-12 public education.
Yeah, I don't know if Dr. Comfort's joined us, but if he has anything to add to this, he is actually the business owner of this effort for D11. So if he'd like to join in, that's great. If he,
I think I can summarize the concerns we had when we went through the original ERP, and Chief Odom talked to this initially, was we were just replacing PeopleSoft with a different company's version of PeopleSoft, which meant we were going to kind of reprogram and detune. Those ERPs are built for massive organizations and don't cover basic fields like who got a licensure degree through an alternative licensure program, and did they get it through UCCS or did they get it through BOCES? Like, I have to be able to marry what our qualifications are of our staff to this other data lake to what's happening in our building. If the number one way to student achievement is access to high quality instruction, we feel a great need to have an ERP that is reflective of both. Remember, we're the only sector in America where the product and the customer are the same thing, which is the student. Nobody else has that. A lot of times we think our customer is our parent, it's really our student. We have to align our resources, and as we talked about, time and talent and money being those three most critical. Getting them all together in the place led us, even before the data lake conversation, that said the ERP RFP was just not gonna work. It's just taking, I won't name the other companies that are out there, but their version of, we weren't built for K-12, here's how you can fix it. Much better for us, especially since we have another 2 years with PeopleSoft to say, let's build what we need and then be in the business of having the thing that works for children.
okay, great. Thank you. Now we go into maybe some of the less sexy stuff of the presentation. This is basically just the nuts and bolts of the enterprise agreement. Power School, as I mentioned, has a number of products and solutions and services, and they weren't all on that diagram you saw earlier. They have lots of things working in the background and plugins and add-ons that we know about now, and we basically know that we're using about 40 of those, about 35% of them. It's based on a per-student licensing or subscription model. Power School, through this arrangement, will give us a significant discount on those subscription costs over the years. And we have an existing contract, so Power School honor that agreement and those annual uplifts of that agreement for the next 5 years when that contract plays out. And then we'll move into another 5-year period that's optionally renewable contract with Power School for this enterprise partnership. They have agreed to hold the costs for their services, implementation, project management, consultation, professional development, fixed for the length of this effort, which right now could be 10.5 years. Oops, and then I did it again, Melissa.
We're almost done.
I haven't learned yet, apparently.
You fail your
Yeah,
OJT.
That's a good look. And of course, we've already talked about the Services Innovation Fund. And you saw the slide of how we propose that could be distributed and paid over the 10-year period. Much of it's going to go to this ERP implementation, Business Plus, the modernization efforts, and future development and future innovation from Power School. And just once again, to capture some of the highlights of this, going back to our strategic vision for this, we're going to really focus on this integrated data system, this one data source of truth for all of our data, student, staff, operational data, so that we can really predict and prescribe supports for our students. We will involve 2 aspects of the ERP in this effort, which is the implementation of Business Plus, and that will start immediately upon signing of the contract if the board approves it. And then we'll move forward with modernization of that ERP, as Jess indicated here so eloquently. And then we'll also have access to all of Power School's products, all of their solutions, all of their developed solutions for the next 10 years. And then if they do happen to acquire more things that we are interested in, right, we'll get those early releases and brave releases of those products, once again at reduced subscription costs. And with that, I'll transition into potential next steps and any discussion.
So I would just like to let everybody know if the board is willing to support this movement, we are prepared to bring to the board a contract modification to expand our offerings to this enterprise solution for the delta of about $220,000. This is the robust offering we could implement that would replace current contract solutions. The power that this brings is that we would be able to develop with Power School a modernized ERP platform that would propel us forward, along with the connected intelligence and one source of truth with the data lake. So at this time, we're ready to turn it over for any questions the board might have for the D11 team or the Power School team.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the thorough presentation out there and all the Power School team being here as well. We didn't hear from the 2 of you, maybe we will hear as we proceed through the question and answer session as well. Really exciting. So I think the Power School team was here about a month and a half back or something, and they made this presentation to the district, and I was invited to sit in on that presentation, and that's where I got the first exposure to this, and now it's coming to the whole board at this time. So like you said, transformative technology, that cutting edge, that nothing like this is available. I'm excited to see where this leads us, but I'll first turn it over to the board for questions. Board questions or comments on the presentation at this time. Director Carey.
Can I ask some technical questions?
Please do.
Who should I direct these to? Okay. I've been wondering for about 2 years when someone was gonna figure this stuff out. So my question is, for the variety of different products that you've shown that are powered by AI, quote unquote, how much of this is kind of LLM usage just for natural language processing, and then you have some kind of robust backend, and how much of it is you're kind of farming out the actual task to the LLM?
Yeah, great question. So we've been doing AI before the generative AI has been around. So we have a whole bunch of predictive analytics that are built on, actually they're not even using large language models, they're using our AI models to predict, for example, kids who are at risk of on-time graduation. Then of course, so we have a whole category of what I would call traditional machine learning and statistical modeling, right, where we're doing all of that work. Then we have, of course, with the advent of generative AI, we partnered with Microsoft and Azure OpenAI because we get that LLM subscription within our walled garden, because it was very important for us that we control that experience and do not allow any of the data that we're working with to go outside on the internet. I will also say that student data privacy and data governance is the #1 priority for everything that we do at PowerSchool. We invest $9 million every year in student data privacy. None of the data that we're talking about over here, D11, the district owns all of the data. We do not use any of that data to send to the LLMs, but we do work with Azure OpenAI as an example. There are a few other LLMs like Cloud and Llama 4 that we're working with. So we use basically the best tool for the best problem that we're trying to solve, and they're an amalgamation of those tools. All of the AI that I talked about today, that you saw on that one slide, all of it is general availability at this point and is currently in use by 239 districts. D11 is actually one of those districts using several of those components and is already in use today. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sounded like the Greek mythology question. Same answer.
There's a little something for everyone.
Well, I think for people that don't have that technology background, that Director Carey was asking the question, maybe there is a simpler version that people can understand. And I would suggest like what Director Ott said, when you're using abbreviations, so please let the community know what you're talking about. Not everybody is aware of those
Acronyms.
Yeah, acronyms.
Yes, so LLM stand, yeah, LLM stand for large language models. Basically, this essence is that we use secure software that's within a walled garden. The district's data is really important and it belongs to the district. We use all of the guardrails and controls in place, so your data is just not being sent over the internet. That is common practice with some of the generative AI tools that are openly available, such as ChatGPT. If any of you have interacted with it, that data potentially can just go out on the internet. So we don't use any of those tools and technologies. We basically keep it within a walled garden, so D11's data remains within D11, and we use secure mechanisms for all of the technology basically that we build within our ecosystem. We also have AI models that we build, and then we use best of breed technology where it doesn't make sense for us to build something because we can just leverage something off the shelf, but fine tune that for K-12.
Appreciate it. Any other questions from board members? Director Bankus.
Go ahead.
No, ladies first.
Director Bankus.
So I came on the board 3 years ago, and PeopleSoft was already here. So we came on the board, we went to the Power School? Power School, oh, what did I say? Oh, sorry. Power School, and it was already in the district. So at that onboarding, what I walked away with, to put it quite bluntly, is the product was oversold. And so we went back, we as a district went back and renegotiated cost and rebates and credits. And while I'm listening to all of this, the difference between 3 years ago and today is that this plan is being generated as opposed to being 3 years ago sold a product that didn't live up to its expectations. So I bring it up because I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, it's going to be developed. Given that prior history, what safeguards or what timetable or what kind of accountability is built into this plan so that as it's developed, it's like, oh, we're another year down the road. It didn't work quite the way we thought it would, but we're going to make it different. I want to have the satisfaction that, or the
Assurance.
confidence that what you're proposing is actually something that's going to unfold in a timely manner, cost-effective, and in a way that we can all say, for the next board that's coming in, because next year there'll be another election, that they don't end up doing an onboarding that says, what did they do? You know, this is not living up to what they said they were gonna do. And that already happened the last election cycle, or 2 election cycles ago. So build my confidence in this program or the plan that we have going forward.
I'll start with just in the way we're seeking to contract. There's another topic tonight that I think the board will have some inputs on how they seek to see that contract. The contract is the mechanism that holds all parties accountable. In the original Power School as an SIS implementation, there were failures on both sides. Absolutely. As an outsider, I have no idea why we just didn't go with a cloud-based service. I'm sure there were good reasons at that time. From the product side, they would be like, half of these problems you have are because you didn't go with what we think we actually do really well. We worked through those, and that happened before I got here, and then in the time we got here, after I got here, through the board and through some hard conversations to get to a place now that Power School uses one of the modules that Tom and his team implemented for our IEP build-outs. So we got over the bumpiness all the time that comes with implementation, and now have a partnership where we are a partner of choice with Power School outside of this conversation. So what was 2 years ago a rocky implementation is now we get credits on our contract for what Tom's team invented, I'll just use my simple terms, on how that Power Schools and SIS can better track what's happening with students with IEPs. So we've already overcome that, but the back part of that is the contract. We have to write in the contract those deliverables, because we have a drop dead date. You heard last week on how in a different relationship with a different company, we're being overcharged, at least our interpretation is overcharged, on a licensure fee that cannot extend beyond the amount of time period that we have asked the board to be able to do it. So we have to manage this now, not to a when do we all think it's gonna work, it has to be ready. This is like the ribbon cutting for the school. It has to be ready. So far, I like to pride the fact that the team has delivered on everything that we've brought to the table. So I think we can put the terms in the contract that says, this can't slip, this can't slide, this can't start to grow. And we do
what's
that.
the recourse, should it?
Well, you put that in the contract. And so you put in the contract, and we haven't negotiated contracted yet, so I'm not putting Power School on the table, but you say, for every day that this is late, or for every 10% overrun that there is, there's then this free period of implementation for us to be able to regain that. It can't be a one-way. So this is the hard part that I've noticed in public education, is that we have one-way contracts, which is we're always beholden to what the provider says has to happen. We negotiate contracts. That issue from last week is a travesty that we allowed that to happen. Chris and her team are going through every one of our contracts to make sure that that's not in there, and every contract that we write will meet the needs of our district as well as the negotiated deliverable from the service provider. Because if it doesn't meet what Power School says that they can do, they're not going to sign the contract.
Mr. Gall, I also want to clarify something about what's being proposed here. There's 2 components that we're talking about in tandem that I could see getting conflated here. The first part, and really the basis of this partnership agreement, is an all-access pass to all of the existing products that are available and fully built and can be implemented at any time. There are dozens of products that we currently are implementing that are ready and working today that are part of the baseline contract. The other piece that I was specifically speaking to in terms of the additional innovation is that the nature of this partnership agreement is that anything new that we are developing, you automatically get free access to as part of the contract. So for a normal contract, if you just bought Business Plus and then we built a new procurement module, you would have to buy that procurement module separately. What we're saying with this partnership is, as part of the agreement, if I build a new procurement module, you get access to that now because it's part of the suite. And Power School is spending upwards of $150 million a year in research and development to bring new products to market. And so for the duration of this agreement, you have access to adopt anything that we're developing through that innovation. So I just wanted to clarify that there's the two pieces. There's, as a baseline, you can access that additional 65% of the product portfolio that is available today. And then on top of that, so like plus 100%, is all of the new innovation that you would get access to as well.
And really what I'm speaking to is that 65%. And that
Yes.
oversold product that we were given to the district, that said we can do these things, and those products could not. That's where my concern is.
Superintendent Gall addressed that. That will be addressed through the contract itself, the terms in the contract and clauses in the contract that will have clear deliverables and timelines established and hold the parties accountable if they don't meet those deadlines and timelines. You want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, and I think we absolutely, if the board agrees, should be at this board meeting every month, every 3 months, decide the cadence to provide a status update on where we are with the migration and with the implementation. The contract, we can put the remedies, we can have the concessions, we can have the penalties, but I think it's more about the accountability of us coming and facing the board and the community and providing status on where we're at. What I can tell you is that we have a very deep and rich methodology in terms of how we implement from daily to weekly status that rolls up. So, and all of these organizations in terms of implementation team, the services team, the support team, the success team, they all roll up through ultimately to my organization. So I can give you my commitment that we will do everything we can to hit the dates, and we will come here to the board meeting to provide status on where we're at, because I feel there has to be that accountability, because the contract only counts for some of that, I think.
I appreciate that. We will take you up on that status update every 3 months. I don't think we want you every month. Every 3 months, certainly we will come and provide us that update. Anything else that, because what Director Bank has talked about is a real concern, as how that Power School got implemented previously, and there are people that were involved in that, and I expressed that same concern the first time I met with you guys. Anything else that you want to add?
Just
and I think
just a couple of things I would say from a product development standpoint. Of course, a lot has changed, in the 2-3 years. I think that director that you're referencing, of course, I think Paul has addressed the implementation side. Ultimately, I'm responsible for product development. That's why you have us here. All of the product development rolls up into me. And we have a very different model of product development right now than we did 2, 3, 5 years ago, which is a very collaborative process. And I think the D11 team, Mr. Hunt, Ms. Cornus can attest to it, where we collaboratively work. So we don't, my development team and product teams don't go, in a silo at the back of the room, go build something for 6 months or 12 months, and then come out and hand it over to Paul's team and to you to implement it and adopt it. What we're talking about in terms of co-development, even our existing products that do exist today, a lot of the Power Buddy AI that we're talking about, that your teams have already adopted, we've gone through an extensive, what we call a beta process, where we partner together. We give you early access to the product. We work with you to get your feedback. We incorporate all of that feedback into our development process. So it's an iterative, collaborative partnership. It's not we go back in the back room, build something, and throw it across the fence, 6-12 months later. So a lot has changed at Power School. A lot has changed in terms of how we think about co-development, and even about our existing products. As just mentioned, we invest over $150 million of R&D. The 65% that you were referencing of existing products, those are constantly being updated and upgraded based on customer feedback. So it's a really tight process, and that's why we have Paul and myself here, because ultimately we're responsible for making sure that you're happy with us and happy with the partnership.
One other thing I'll add is that as we were scoping out the contract, we also had some really honest conversations about what the district could manage from a capacity standpoint in terms of implementation timelines and scaffolding that accordingly. And the scaffold increase of the contract reflects that. So for example, I think you're not paying for Business Plus at all for the first year, so that you can be able to wean off the PeopleSoft contract and slowly add in the Business Plus component. So we also factor that into the entire nature and structure of the contract, really being honest about what's the timeline where we can reasonably expect. You know, we know that these things take time. We're not gonna snap our fingers and they're all implemented tomorrow. And so we actually factor that into a lot of the discussions about how to scaffold things in.
And we wanted to today,
I can't hear you.
Mac and I are here often, and we wanted representation from our chief officers today to share that commitment and express it. And as Shivani and Paul and Jess have stated, it has changed from when the project, you know, when you first went with the student system, we brought in these leaders to put processes in place to partner with districts on rollouts. When I come here and Tom shares with me how your teacher is using Power Buddy and a student is asking it questions and their Power Buddy keeps directing them to learning, it's incredible. I mean, usually take 3 questions about football instead of the solar system, and Power Buddy gets it back, and then the student starts learning. And a teacher with 30 kids in a classroom, each needing personalized attention and education, it's hard to do. So we're very excited to partner with the district, the leadership here, have our leadership team here who backs the commitment from us to partner with all of you and make this successful.
So when you're talking about curriculum or meeting the needs of each unique child, are we talking about computer programs so that children are spending more screen time?
No, the intent here is not to digitize the classroom. The intent here is to digitize the information to value the relationship between the teacher and the student. So if I can take 25 kids in a class and all the data that exists to then help prioritize our staff on what part of learning was missed and where is it that we can go afterwards. The focus is on the quality and the timeliness of the intervention and the instruction. There are ed tech tools which will feed into this that we haven't properly used. Many of our staff will put kids, for appropriate reasons, on some of our ed tech platforms. They need a small group so kids can go off on an unnamed product. What we don't do a good job of is connecting the data that comes out of that product back into the general learning. So what did Chris do for 20 minutes while on an ed tech platform for math or for ELA? That data is important, but the design here is not to take away the student-to-teacher relationship. If anything, it's to actually solidify it and make it more clear on why it is and how it is that we're engaging. Right now, to that 170,000 data points, it's just too much to manage. And so the hope is, in the same way that if I bought this at Amazon 3 weeks ago, next time I open up Amazon, it says it's time for more toothpaste because you bought it 2 weeks ago and that's about the time it takes for toothpaste. Oh, you're right, toothpaste. So, not simplifying, making it simpler to understand where the value of the quality of the instruction is the difference that happens.
You're good, Director Bankers.
I'm done.
Director Jokins. Just a couple quick questions. This all sounds wonderful. I've adapted to AI in my practices and it's very handy, especially in saving time. So I'm excited about that. Will we have the IT infrastructure, whether it's cloud-based or actual hard lines, to be able to handle all the things we're proposing here?
If you're talking about the network, if you're talking about devices, we're well equipped to handle those technology needs, okay? If you're talking about implementation, you're talking about adopting these products, and Jess alluded to that, right? That's gonna take a dedicated IT team. As you can see, we're expanding from 35% of their products to 100% potentially in a fairly short period of time. And as good as PowerSchool is and as good as these applications are, because they are best in class, none of them are turn the key and it just works. Turn the key and everybody's fully trained, right? Turn the key and we have district-wide adoption. And those things are gonna take commitment and effort and resources from PowerSchool and from district-wide.
And to teachers to be able to then, say, well, what do I wanna adopt? Maybe it's not, everybody takes these 2 classes and gets them up and running, and then you get to pick maybe a couple that would interest you that you could see valuable. So that's operations side. And then a question on just the finances of it. We had allocated 3 million for ERP migration. We now saw on your slide where we're repurposing that money. And then just to clarify, we also had other funds as a placeholder to replace PeopleSoft of about 1.5 million, is that accurate? Do you remember what that placeholder was for the new PeopleSoft version we were using? Or do we have a number in mind?
I don't know if we had that.
So we had allocated
Just
$3 million, which
Okay.
needed to be 50% of what we thought was the projected overall cost of a new ERP.
Okay.
And that was one-time dollars that we allocated last year.
That's correct.
And in the stack of how that $3 million goes is the precursor to bring in Business Plus into the migration over, of which then we got, what did you say, just 2 years, a year free, then the year free afterwards. So it actually, what Brandon's supposed to say if he comes here, is Brandon's supposed to say, when I looked at this is a no-brainer, because I'm getting more than what I originally budgeted for. Not just in overall product, but in cross-functionality. And that was the stacked lines that Tom shared.
I think another way to say this is
21.
basically for about the budget of your
21.
current ERP contract, you're getting a new ERP plus all of the other products in the suite is about how the math works out. That agree, Tom?
Yes.
And then with this, so with all of you kind of already helping with the school-based budgeting idea, and hopefully that's still continuing. And then having this, you mentioned a garden of what we get to control in D11. I'm assuming this would help us not only in budgets, but also in right-sizing our district to say this school needs this amount of staff with this schedule, so we can kind of start looking at proper modeling and sizing of the district. Is that gonna have that capability as well?
Yeah, and so again, this is the convergence of all those ideas. Last year, Brandon's efforts of bringing the budget to the HR roles of our staffing uncovered 150 ghosted positions. That's up to $15 million of unprogrammed money that represented not somebody we couldn't hire, but somebody that we never even advertised for. So this then, in combination with all of you, gets this down to the student/school-based budgeting, that our ERP is built from the bottom up of what is needed at the school level to be successful, not what exists at central office that gets so distal from the classroom that we're constantly talking as people around this table instead of recognizing and actually having the data and the product that says to us, here's what you need to run as a school. Oh, and by the way, if you now want to cross-slice it this way, some of the things we have thought about is what I would call an operational risk management. If I have a brand new principal, and wouldn't it be great to then have an experienced AP? What is the risk that I take on that every year we seem to hire a principal and their first principalship is either a Title I school or a high school? We'll have the ability now to understand what that risk is and to be able to measure it against the actual dollars that we program into the budget. We talked about a month or so ago. The difference between what we budget and what we spend doesn't sound like a lot in aggregate, but it's a massive amount at an individual school. Our Title I schools budget more than our non-Title I schools, but our per pupil expenditure is always higher at the non-Title I school. And that has to be raised up, that a principal understands that and understands then what are the strategies to ensure that they can use the dollars that the board gives them to drive the actual outcomes of the classroom.
I'll give you another sneak peek of some real near-term innovation that starts to get to this too. We're getting ready to release a national database through a partnership with the Gates Foundation of thousands of What Works Clearinghouse studies on research-backed instructional practices. We are then going to start looking at tying that into the budget process. So I want you to imagine a scenario where a principal sits down and says, I need to improve science scores for my 10th graders. And he's presented with a database that says, here's 3 options, and they choose this zoology curriculum, right? And that curriculum is gonna be $15,000 and it's gonna impact a group of 15 kids. Now you go over to analytics and insights and we can actually see that group of 10th graders We can see that it's tied to this program. We can see the students that are in there. We can see that we spent $1,000 per pupil on this program, and we can see what happens with their formative assessments or state tests in science. You can actually start to get that detailed. That level of analysis and planning tied to strategy is coming within the next year.
Thank you. We do have to keep the conversation moving. We have other agenda items, board members. Any other questions? Director Nelson.
Yeah, I have quite a few. I see this as kind of two things all under Power School. So I'm going to focus on the sort of suite of programs that you're saying we'll have available to us now. What are the potential current programs we're using that we should be anticipating? Like, I'm thinking of our STAR testing. Is that a Power School product, or is there a ripple effect that now we're gonna potentially be switching our testing program in a few years, a couple of years, so that this pool of data is accessible? Or are you guys gonna like go buy STAR testing for us? Just kidding.
So STAR is a different company.
I figured.
Yeah, that's not Power School's currently, yeah, it's not Power School's program currently. But I think the point is we're able to bring all of that data together. I think that's what Superintendent Gall was saying, so it doesn't matter if it's, so it doesn't matter if it's STAR, it doesn't matter if it is, whatever other tool or program that you're using, we will still have the ability to bring all of that together to do all of the things that we've talked about here.
So it's not exclusive. It's not if it doesn't have a PS in the bottom of it, it doesn't go into the data lake. We're able to talk to Power School. It is obviously advantage for them if they're using interim assessments in their relationship with us or anyone. I do think Power School would love to be able to come back to the table in a couple of years when we're reviewing our interim assessments to then showcase what they think is their better answer to an interim assessment. Is there an advantage to that in the future? It's hard, we're a Microsoft communications device district, and a lot of times people will say to me, why aren't you Google? Like, well, we go through these processes all the time. So it's not exclusive that the data access is only if it's a Power School product.
So I'm just wondering if we have products though that we almost could be paying double, because we could have access over here. We're ramping up how much we're paying to Power School, but we are locked in on a contract with, say, like Class Dojo or something like that. Is that at play
Let's talk
here?
about the timelines.
The answer is yes, if I'm understanding your question. I'll give you an example. We do have a number of our schools that are not using your behavior support tool, right? They use another tool, which is PBIS works for a lot of our schools, right? So in essence, we are using multiple applications to deliver the same functionality.
Across our system currently.
And so I think it would make sense if there was a directive guidance from leadership to say, hey, if Power School provides it, if it provides the functionality that you need, you go first to Power School, right? So that's not my decision, but that could be a decision of the district down the road to eliminate some of those redundant systems.
Yeah. I have a question on the timing on the slide 26 it says we would shift to Business Plus July of 2026. I'm just wondering why a year and a half out?
It takes that long to implement. It's a very, very ERP implementation. That's actually a relatively quick timeline. ERP migrations and implementations can be anywhere from 18 to 36 months, so that's actually on the shorter side of it. It's a lot of data, and it's a lot of very critical functions like payroll. You do not want to mess up payroll. So we really take our time.
And it's in time with where we would have been had we down selected either of the other ERPs in the RFP. So there's no delay in the board's original decision that says let's program one-time dollars into finding a new RFP. So that was one of the things that we brought to the table was this can't cost us more time, one, because we need it, and two, we saw the penalties that we were paying at last week's virtual board meeting through the Oracle contract.
I just want to follow up on the concept that if we are shifting some of our programs towards Power School, the support that is available from your team, like the current existing offerings that you have, because I would have the expectation that our D11 staff should very minimally be supporting transitions from like a class dojo to whatever it is you have. I would expect that the supplier would be helping facilitate that transition. So just wanted to make sure that is
Yes.
an expectation. Okay.
Categorically,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a partnership. I mean, I won't fool anyone that the secret to D11's success in IT has been our program applications work that Sarah and Tom, who represent many others, have done here. As a former vendor, sometimes vendors are like, it's very hard to deal with. How many different clients do you have, Shivani?
18,000.
18,000, right? So everybody's got their own thing. Well, we do this, and we're a morning upload, and no, we never do anything on Saturdays, and so we have a very strong program applications team that helps with that. I will say that people are downplaying the amount of time and the presence that they have here because you don't normally see them. The Power School team is here all the time, and they are here in that partnership with just the regular SIS implementation and now the attendance suite that we're getting to roll out. And we're working through the wrinkles that we discovered just last week, some of which are ours, some of which are the programs. That happens every time. I think it's been a strong partnership, and I anticipate that continuing.
And part of it, Superintendent Gall, if I could just add, we are also including managed service. So you will get a different level of support with some of the applications, including ERP, and that will give you a dedicated resource that the team will be able to go to. So it is a level above even what you have today.
That's good to hear.
And just to clarify, the 11th staff will be heavily involved if we move from any of these other redundant applications to Power School. It's our data, it's our users. We'll be very involved in that effort, and so it will require D11 resources. The vendor will not be able to do that on their own, unless they bring a consultant on site.
I'll just flip over to sort of the other topic now, which is this innovation space, which is so exciting. I think the potential to help improve a system that could trickle over to multiple school districts is pretty amazing that we could help be a part of that work. And I applaud the staff for looking at what's out there and saying, man, this really isn't much better. And so let's go find and make better. So kudos to you all for just saying no, or not facing that roadblock and just saying this is what we get. I am curious, who owns the final product? Like District 11 is going to be providing some knowledge and expertise, and so I'm just wondering, because at some point you're gonna come out with something that you can go sell to other districts. So I'm here looking out for my district.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be consulting some, intellectual property attorneys and building something into the contract that as this gets developed, for every time they go sell to another district, we get a reduction in our pricing, something to that effect?
I'll just let Tom it's hard to predict the future, but I'll let Tom comment on how we went from a good idea to where we are on the special ed work.
Yeah, for that effort, Power School provided a platform called Special Programs. It has IEP 504, gifted, ELL supports, etc. That platform was very much bare bones and was not configured for Colorado requirements, Colorado reporting, and IEP requirements in general. So we took on the task of building those supports and getting it configured for Colorado. And then in conversation with Power School, right, we made that available through an intellectual property agreement. But it's a little different than what we're proposing here in the sense that we had the platform and we did all of the development work. We did not use Power School's resources. If we did, it was a consultant here or there that we had to, obviously pay for some services, but it was really all in-house development. What we're talking about in this arrangement is we're kind of the consultants. we're kind of the subject matter experts for K-12 that is gonna help Power School develop this with their resources.
Yep.
So it's a little different model that maybe Jeff wants to say something about.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'll say is that a critical part of making this successful for D11 is that by nature it cannot be a custom solution. So we will have to build in a way where this is configurable for a wide body of customers. And a truly enormous level of resources will have to go into this relative to kind of the feedback cycles. So it is a little bit of a different project than kind of something where the district is doing that development.
And if that point was not clear, I would just further make another clarification of that. So really what Jess is saying is that in order to get this right, we will want D11 as one of the constituents, important constituents at the table, but we also want to bring in other districts to the table. So we have collective voice, and that's how we've been successful with a lot of our innovation, like Power Buddy. District 11 was a really solid partner, but we also worked with school districts representing 1.6 million students in order to get that right. And that's why you are seeing the results that you're seeing right now. So even though you are one very important voice, we're gonna have others come to the table so we can build this solution that's scalable to more than just D11.
Right, and what, it kind of goes back to Director Banks' point where our team will be sort of guinea pigs at times. And just for your awareness, I worked in product development in food science world, so I love that we're looking at this, but it's something I chose to sign up for, and my team members, understood this is the world we're in. Our staff, there may be gonna be some struggles as we're experimenting and piloting things, and so just wanting assurance that your team is, I see that this would be a priority for you because you wanna develop a product that you can go sell, but I just need to hear it.
Yeah, I will
Support
also say
to staff.
there is a reason why we chose to start with the known entity that is Business Plus. Because in that way, anything new that we do can be parallel path. And then the Business Plus product is always the safety net, right? It's if you don't have to take the leap until you're ready. That net is there. Now, if you see the new improved thing and you're like, oh my God, we can't, now, more often than not, by the time we get to the last mile of something new, the customers are like, please, can we go to the new thing, right? They wanna take the leap because again, my bar is that it's really 10 times better. You wanna make that jump. But we also very intentionally do those things parallel paths, and that was why we said, we don't think that the move here is to leap without a net from PeopleSoft to something brand new. That is frankly not something I wanna even take on. Even I am not quite that risky. So the Business Plus solution really serves as this kind of safety net where your bases are covered. We can run things in parallel path, and then when the district is ready to fully make the switch, you can.
Okay, I guess my last question would be to Dr. Comfort of just getting a sense that the time and energy that our staff are going to be investing in helping develop this product, that we see that well worth it on the other end. Because as I hear you, it sounds like the answer is no, you're not gonna at all be part of owners of this, and we're not gonna give you cuts later in the overall product once it's fully developed. So I just need to make sure that it makes sense that our team
I'll let him
is
answer
taking the
that
time.
for himself. He's stuck in traffic coming back from Denver. I will say the other thing is you add up all the numbers is the money's up front. I mean, we've got literally a 50% deal on the suite of services from Power School to enter into this relationship. So we negotiated, we need a discount to enter into this. And yeah, there could be value of instead having said, we want 5% royalties of what you ever sell afterwards. We could certainly talk about that in contract negotiation. I'll have Dr. Comfort get his answer to you on that. I don't want to speak for him.
Thanks for that.
But
You're
Dr.
well aware we got a 50% reduction,
Yep.
so just thank you for repeating that.
Yep.
Director Nelson, my number one concern, the number one risk in my mind with this effort is the health and wellness of our staff. Because it is gonna be a big lift. As you mentioned, we're gonna be doing work in collaboration with Power School. It's additional work that we're doing in addition to the daily work that we're doing. It's important work and we're gonna be responsible to our taxpayers, but the health and wellness of our group and the stress is gonna be a critical concern and something that we're gonna have to monitor and make sure that we keep on top of.
Yeah, and just recognizing that our district is a declining enrollment district and we're continually having to right size all of our opportunities that we're providing to students and our staffing, and so something like this maybe is a investment that we're choosing to make, and knowing that it's gonna get our systems to a better place, but there could be some costs involved on our end as well. So that's all I had.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll come to Director Hafley now. I just want to remind the board that we are already 45 minutes longer than allocated for this conversation. I appreciate all the good conversation and the discussions that is going on, but just a reminder that we may have a longer evening at the end of it later on down the road. Director Hafley.
Two very quick questions. You guys were speaking of voice earlier. My question is, were teachers asked for their input?
On what part?
Okay, so being a former teacher in D11, having to deal with Power School, and I want to say this as nicely as I can, not a fan. It was not user-friendly. And the district has a history of replacing something just as soon as somebody gets used to it. And so that's my question as well. Are we prepared to keep this program?
So I'll
I know
jump.
that you're talking about 10 years
Yeah.
of this kind of thing. My concern is that teachers weren't asked, hey, what are you thinking about Power School? What are the problems that you're seeing? How can we fix these kinds of things? And then they don't want something replaced just as they're getting used to it.
So not replacing the SIS. The SIS goes through constant updates, of which our relationship with Power School does have teacher input. To highlight that one of the conferences that Tom was talking about was this AI conference that Power School had hosted. I forgot the name of it. What was it? Edge, of which several D11 teachers were highlighted on the national stage for how they're using the AI portion of what we're trying to expand here. So Power School itself, I'm sorry it hasn't worked for you when you were a teacher, but Power School is the SIS of District 11 for the foreseeable future, and probably even more grounded for the foreseeable future in this type of relationship. It would be very difficult to think of an enterprise relationship where the thing that hosts most or generates most of the data doesn't exist at the center of it. So no more changes to the daily way that the teacher interacts. And the hope is that that collective intelligence eases the user dynamic for the teacher, not another new login to go ask Power Buddy how to ask Power School, did I or did I not have attendance properly updated in the system today? So it's designed to be simplified. I'll let the Power School team talk about the way they interface with teachers and whether or not that's in the ability to have as a part of this.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, in terms of all of the product development work that we do, we are very much, and we work through Sarah and she helps coordinate this. All of our development work involves making sure that we actually get end user feedback, including working, of course we will work through you, but we also have our own user groups where we work with students and parents, either through you or through other mechanisms that we have. So absolutely, we're involving them in this development process, we're hearing their feedback, and we're wanting to make this experience better for them. And as Superintendent Gall outlined, I think Sarah can attest to this, your teachers, D11 teachers were actually highlighted on national news because of how they were participating in this program and using, one of the first ones in the nation actually to use AI to give them time back to work with kids.
A proud cougar, as a matter of fact. Which is
Toward me.
That's
fine.
I'll jump in there too and say that we run a
Brent
champions.
Brent Urban, thank you.
We,
Of course.
we run a champions group inside of D11, that we meet with at least quarterly to get feedback from our teachers. So we have 2 or 3 representatives from the high schools, 1 or 2 from the middle school, and 1 from each elementary that Melanie Bulick and I meet with. And then they are our pipeline to the schools and back to us. So problems that they're having, issues that need to be addressed right away, they bring to us. We take to Christine, who's been helping us get things escalated. I would say our numbers of complaints and questions have decreased over the last year. And the feedback we've given for Schoology has really taken some of the things that our teachers requested and implemented it right away. And the new product owner of Schoology was here for Colorado Connect, and she really listens to our teachers and to teachers across the nation. She runs different Power Up conversations where she gets feedback directly from teachers. So there is access to Power School for the classroom teacher, and they truly do, in my experience, they are listening.
Good, thank you. When you said Brent Urban, and I said, of course it's Brent Urban, that wasn't a slam. Brent's amazing.
Yes, we agree.
You done, Director Hifley?
I'm done, thank you.
Dr. Ross?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate questions of like every single director because I've been able to check off what I had to ask, so that's a time saver. I just want to be reassured Business Plus is going to take care of our HR needs because that's how it all started, really. And so by the time we get there in 2027, finally, I understand it needs to take time. That is going to address the concerns we've had.
The modified version of Business Plus will address all of the goals that the district has. The current version of Business Plus would be a straight exchange for PeopleSoft just under a different name, would be my synopsis of that, which is why we want to enter into this development phase, because I just can't find the thing that's going to tell me everything we need to know to get this district to the next level. So yes, and.
So the question of 2027, we were talking about earlier, and looking at the baseline roadmap and future innovation, the Business Plus implementation said early 2025.
Yep.
So that's the current version. Right.
That's
Sounds
for
like-
us to migrate over to have a starting point, Jess.
Yeah, I'll also add, this does get it gets a little tricky with the timeline because since the implementation takes so long, it is possible that by the time you're getting to the implementation version, you will actually have some of the new stuff, because I basically have an 18-month head start to build some of that stuff. So one of the first things that we want to do is actually sit down with that team and understand what are really the most critical priorities, like what are the things that are really the biggest pain points that I could potentially accelerate and kind of move to the top of the list, so that by the time that you are rolling out, some of those problems are already solved, if that makes sense.
Okay, I guess so, because it did say future innovation, the 2 to 5 year mark was payroll and compliance. And so that was my concern, is that we might not see that for a very long time. So I appreciate that you be working on that.
And Director Ott, during the RFP process and our evaluations and sandbox testing, none of the users, none of the D11 participants in that process said that Power School's Business Plus would prevent them from doing their job. We asked that very specific question. Could you use this to get your job done? And it was unanimous. The answer is yes.
Okay, that sounds very promising. Second question, a community member had suggested I start asking this question. I'm going to go ahead because I have interest in transparency and disclosure. Does anyone in the administration have any financial interest in the company? No, that's great news. Okay. Just like I said, transparency and disclosure. And finally, I remember in early AI days, the lack of diversity in companies and test subjects was resulting in some very skewed results, especially I think about systemic racism, gender-specific issues, like if you always are testing the face of a man, you're never going to understand the face of a woman in a facial ID situation. And just in general, we're going to have all these data points on our kids. I don't want our kids to be held back by our cultural expectations of what a child who is attending 50% of the time and is on free and reduced lunch, that child should be able to have challenges and be successful just like every other child in the classroom. How do you address that? Whether and for that matter in HR, for the entire system, how are you addressing that?
Very proactively, and I see Shivani smiling, because it is, I'm so glad you brought it up, it's a very big issue, and top of mind for us to remove biases. So I will let Shivani talk about the work we've been doing for many years, so that we could be ready today, so those biases are removed.
Yeah. So even before we wrote a single line of code, as it was, with AI, we developed what we proudly uphold as K-12's first responsible AI pledge, which is our 6 principles. One is it's human-centered. So I think somebody asked a question before about, is this gonna, replace the teacher-student interaction? It is absolutely not. Our first principle is human-centered, which means that we want to augment the human's capability by providing them the right data, the right insights, so they're not wasting their time with things that are irrelevant. Second is stringent data security and privacy that I addressed earlier. Third is bias resistance by making sure that we have several mechanisms, programmatic mechanisms, and we brute force with what we call human-in-the-loop testing. So everything that we do, we actually go through, because this generative AI is a little different than the traditional ones and zeros, right? Because it's really contextual information. So we actually employ humans in addition to programmatic mechanisms of testing, for example, one AI's response against another AI to validate programmatically, but also then employ human subject matter experts to do what you're talking about, right? For bias checks and resistance, as well as for accuracy and hallucination. Hallucination in AI is basically AI making things up, when it's with authority, because it's not, when it's not true. So we have guardrails and mechanisms in place in order to protect against that. The next one is accessibility and digital equity. So I referenced this earlier, but things like text-to-speech, speech-to-text, language accommodations, special education accommodations, making sure that every student, every parent, every educator can access our technology without any of those to make sure it's accessible to everybody and making sure that those controls are in place. The next one is district control and transparency. So making sure that you are able to control and roll out what you think is best for your students, right? So you have the controls, we don't have the controls in place. And the last is making sure that we have ethical use of data. So those are 6 principles. Hopefully that addresses maybe a little bit more than what you were asking.
Between you, yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You good, Dr.
I am, thank you.
Dr. Bankus, you had a.
I just want to clarify Director Jorgensen's comment earlier. So your IT department is staffed to carry through at its present staffing level to implement this partnership?
We're gonna have to rearrange, we're gonna have to probably evaluate where some staff can fit in better. This is a big project, there's gonna be a lot happening. Even understanding, for instance, who in the district now understands all of the 114 products that Power School offers. There's gonna have to be a ramp up in some of our staff to understand those and to understand the needs of our users so that we can look at that suite of applications and align the supports with those needs.
So when you
We
say
don't have those
ramp
staff
up,
in place now.
so when you say ramp up, does that mean additional staff?
No, we're not programming additional staff. There will be things that come off people's plates. If you saw the number of people who spend their day band-aiding and carrying PeopleSoft across the line, will there be adjustments in actual duties and responsibilities? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, if you can quickly move to slide 22, Melissa. So just for clarity's sake, the $3 million that was set aside for the DRP in slide 22, that is going to be allocated to this at this point in time. Is that, am I clear? I mean,
That's our start.
yeah, that one. That's the way it's going to be allocated. In addition to that, if you go to the previous graph out there, that's the delta that is coming to the board in terms of a budget modification that you were talking about, going from that orange graph to the blue graph.
What's the anticipated budget modification, Chris?
$200,000, something to that effect.
Right, in order of magnitude. It's the $3 million pre-programmed plus a budget modification of,
Approximately 220,000, because the orange line represents money that we have elsewhere allocated. We're receiving it through
Through the grant.
grants, so it's really the delta between the magenta and the
That's
blue.
correct. That's correct.
So it's more like 460,000.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I don't
And
have the exact number.
That is coming to the
that will
board
come in a
as a
future
sometime
work
as a
board meeting.
just so the board is aware of it, that this is going to come as a budget modification, so you are aware of it. When that does come, we are not going to have a lengthy discussion because this has already been discussed at the work session.
And it will be in place of what would have been, here's our ERP proposal. This is baked in to this conversation. So we shouldn't ask during that budget modification, where's the ERP contract? That's what we're bringing forward.
Yes.
We have an existing relationship with Power School, which gives us the ability to modify that contract with these new terms. That needs to go to negotiation and then come to the board for approval.
Okay.
That's our next step.
Yeah, and several board members expressed some concerns. Maybe some of that could be reflective in the contract as you guys develop it. Make sure that there are guardrails and safeguards in place. And Director Nelson talked about the intellectual property ownerships. Maybe some of that could be discussed and see if there is a mutually beneficial relationships that can be developed. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate this. Just as you guys are looking for an exciting partnership with District 11, we are looking forward to an exciting partnership with District 11. But you heard the concerns in the room from the board directors, and I think you were the one that talked about it gets annoying when a la carte you get added cost or whatever it is. What's annoying to me as a board member is a year, what Director Bank has talked about, a year or 2 years down the road, if what you guys are promising today is not taking place out there, and then we as elected citizens out here get to hear that feedback from our staff members. So I just want to reflect that, provide that feedback to you, that doesn't happen, but this is a really beneficial partnership that both sides are going to benefit from. We are going to get some innovative, transformative technology that is going to be cutting edge, that is going to be then shared with other districts as well. So we look forward to this partnership, and every 3 months come and give us an update.
Absolutely.
And, we'll move on from that, and hopefully that transition is smooth, that our staff gets the necessary training and all the necessary components that go with it. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So board, we were supposed to finish our work session at this point in time, so
I'm listening, I'm just.
yeah, I will, yeah, thank you.
Yes, you guys as well.
Hey, look who's here.
Great, hey guys. Welcome. You're back from Denver.
Thank you, pleasure to meet you, look forward to.
I'll be here.
So we need to get back, to the work session conversation. Thank you for being here. We were supposed to end our work session at this point in time, so I guess the Palmer renovation conversation is a 2-minute conversation.
Okay, done.
Well, no, thank you. As the teams transition out, and the next team comes in, everybody that's involved with the Palmer Innovation that's joined this discussion table, please do come ahead and join us at this point in time.
He said we
Yeah,
can get
he's,
started, he'll be joining it.
Yeah, he's going to be right here.
Yeah, so I think that you guys should come. There's a seat here.
You can turn it. It's okay. He can give you permission.
We may need to, I know there is a large group up here. We may need to get some of you in here as needed. So let's get started. Thank you all for being here. This is the next step in the process for the Palmer Renovation conversation. Superintendent Hall is not here, so I will try to set the context for this presentation up here to the board and to the community as well. We first went through a RFP process to select the design team, and that was RTA and Perkins Eastman, and I see Doug Abernathy here from RTA, and the next step in the process was to figure out the general contractor for this project, for this construction part of the project. Chris, Chief Odom is here to give us highlight about that RFP process that took place, the vendors that were part of the process, and I see some committee members, including Mr. McKernan, who was part of the process, and then I saw the Palmer principal walk in here as well. Thank you for all being here, and also the facilities people, Jen Hotel and Hannah White, and all those people. I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris, to give us some context, and I can also chime in as necessary. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, President Malpacum. Good evening and welcome. With us tonight is the Construction Management General Contractor Team of Adolphson and Peterson, or A&P. They will be performing both Phase 1 and Phase 2 contract efforts. Both phases will be brought forward to the board for contract approval, and tonight is Phase 1. Following the work session, we are asking for the board's approval on the Phase 1 effort in the amount of $127,500. Mr. Tony Signorelli, did I say that correctly, Tony?
Yes.
Thank you. Close enough. And Mr. Chris Meek are the leaders from this team of A&P, along with their project team. We have two at the table and other members here. Thank you for coming. At the end of my presentation, they will provide a brief overview of their Colorado region's performance and how they will deliver this project. We do ask that you hold your questions to after all presentations have been concluded. You'll recall back in August, the board approved the A&E design team of RTA Perkins Eastman, and I believe Mr. Doug Abernathy is present representing the design team, to conduct community engagements and create design renovation for Palmer High School. Moving into the CMGC effort, there remains a rich history weaved throughout this project, reaching back to the city's founding father, General William Jackson Palmer. Palmer High School is filled with tradition and steeped in pride as the heart of the downtown community. RTA updated the board on October 30th on community engagement feedback to date, and Dr. Weiss has reported out that the steering committee has stood up. As RTA begins to wrap up the community engagement phase and user feedback phases, the design will move into what we call a schematic design and later design development phase. Having A&P on board will provide support to the design team immediately by providing conceptual estimates on the master plan design proposed, provide feedback on design efforts confirmed, and constructability to verify to confirm constructability. As the project begins, so does a new chapter in our journey to the renovation of Palmer High School. Tonight we will review, I will provide a comprehensive review of the evaluation process led by Ms. Rosa Garcia and Jocelyn Comferman from our Procurement and Contracting Department, and the Phase 1, Phase 2 contract timeline, and wrap up with next steps. It's fair to say that the construction portion of this project is not nearly as visionary or transformational as the design portion. But building this project will bring a sense of reality to the community. Although building won't start until late summer or early fall of 2025, the initial work to be performed will be in collaboration with the A&E design team of RTA Perkins Eastman. This RFP was competed under full and open competition procedures. We notified 18 local firms and invited them to participate in the mandatory site walk. It concluded with 18 firms that did attend the mandatory site walk and the participation of BidNet for other GCs to submit their proposals. In a CMGC contract, the general contractor has two distinct performance periods. Most recently, we have used this CMGC process before in several of our projects. We've done it most recently with our secure entry vestibules, and that design has been through RTA, and it coincidentally, the award for the construction effort was with AMP. Tonight for the special meeting, I am bringing the Phase 1 pre-construction consulting, and ultimately the deliverable to the district will be a guaranteed maximum price for them to build to. I anticipate we'll be able to bring this guaranteed maximum price project to the board for board approval to begin construction in the October-November 2025 timeframe. The RFP had desired outcomes, as you see listed on the left side of the screen. I won't list them all, but most notably are how we track the projects through schedule, cost controls, and to ensure that we have a reliable trade workforce that produces high-quality craftsmanship. Our core evaluation team, comprised of district subject matter experts, did include expanded evaluation team stakeholders from Palmer High School, the superintendent, the board president, and a list of community advisors to include student voice, alumni, downtown development community representatives, and the design architect team themselves. Just for note, advisors do not vote, but they provide valuable input from their lens of expertise. We received 7 proposals. 1 was deemed non-responsive and technically unacceptable. The core evaluation team evaluated all 6 proposals from the firms listed on your screen. Bless you. During the initial evaluation, the contractors were evaluated on demonstrated project experience with occupied K-12 renovations, meaning there were people in the building while construction was going on and everything had a pivot. Projects that needed to be, that they had had expertise in projects of similar magnitude, which is $85 million, and that they had to have recent experience within 3 to 5 years. We also wanted them to, we evaluated their ability, demonstrated ability to obtain bonding capacity up to $85 million threshold, and to produce builder's insurance risk, among other required insurance specified in the RFP. We wanted to ensure they had a proven safety record as safety and their safety approach to maintain a safe working environment, especially because this was going to be with an occupied space offering. This is a common sought industry practice that they do have safety scores and safety reports that they could produce. The pre-construction and construction team had a cohesive demonstrated model, as well as experience, capability, and the capacity to perform the work. The experience of the proposed on-site superintendent proposed through a resume and demonstrated past performance for on-site, as the on-site superintendent plays a major role in the success of this project. All 6 general contractors were invited to the interview with the larger group to ensure a best value team was selected. Each firm was given 90 minutes to present. Each was given questions that they had to address. Of high interest to the team was their proposed student engagement opportunities, their ability to demonstrate a strong start and finish when the project has a likely end date of 18 months and beyond. And of equal interest was how the GC would de-escalate disgruntled school and community members. This slide represents the review of key factors and outcomes we sought in the top-ranked candidate. The evaluation team met for final deliberations after concluding all interviews and receiving all advisor input. We use consensus conversation process to identify noted strengths, gaps, and final scores for each firm. The top-ranked firm, or the top-ranked general contractor selected by this team, is Adolphson and Peterson. This slide is erroneously in the wrong place and should be 2 slides later, so I'm going to pass through that, and I apologize. Moving on to the final selection rationale. A&P had a proven track record, especially with a focus of high school renovations and occupied space opportunities. They have nearly 4 decades of K-12 building experience within the state of Colorado. This includes experience on renovations, historical renovations, new builds, and they have recently completed 13 projects that were involving occupied space, 10 of which were on high schools. They've completed over 159 projects that were K-12 focused over the last 5 years that ranged in price magnitude up to $229 million. The most recent was a D11 awarded construction project for 40-plus school entrances valued at approximately $12.3 million. They are approximately 50% done, and they have been running on time and within budget. Furthermore, on this same project, approximately 80% of this effort is subcontracted out, all of which to local subcontractors. From a technical approach, their proposal excelled as well as did their personal interviews. They demonstrated highly qualified and experienced team composition. Their team represented a very strong, cohesive pre-construction and construction team membership. Their proposal approach gave confidence to the evaluation team that they would start strong and finish strong. They had a proven safety record. They demonstrated local commitment for subcontracting and can easily meet the state law for hiring 80% Colorado residents. Finally, the proposed pricing for phase one was within a competitive range, and the proposed phase two fee base was the lowest of all 6 general contractors. Going back to my misplaced slide, this provides an overview of how the design phase overlaps with phase one pre-construction and the various efforts included in that, to include phase two construction that will happen somewhere next late summer, early fall timeframe. This slide represents a recap of the Palmer High School program milestones. We're not eliminating or we're not done with the design, but the CMGC phase one comes in and complements the work that's being done by the design team. They will provide scoping or cost estimating for conceptual options. They're going to validate the constructability of the design that's being proposed, and they will take those final construction bid documents, construction documents, and go out and hard bid it to give back to the district what we call a guaranteed maximum price that we'll be able to build to this. As I prepare to turn this over to the A&P team, I want to recap the fundamental outcomes the district seeks in this Palmer project. We seek to revitalize our school community and honor our rich history, to transform visioning from our student learning environment, to build an educational beacon of excellence both locally and abroad, and to create a hub that serves as a nucleus for community engagement and outreach. And finally, a building that fosters opportunities that will propel student agency for years to come. At this time, I invite Tony and Chris from A&P to share with us an overview of your approach for this project and to answer any questions that our board may have.
Okay, before we get there, you got several people in your team up here too, and then we have some of the RFP committee members here. I'm sure the board would like to hear some of the feedback
Mike, can
from
you
the
come up to the
RFP
table,
committee as well.
particularly as a
So yeah, Mike
committee
McKernan
member?
and then the Palmer principal, Christopher, if you, both of you can come.
Dr. Weiss.
Doug Abernathy is here too from RTA if we need the feedback. I know.
Jessica,
Jessica.
you
Yeah.
want to squeeze in? You can squeeze your chair in, I'll scoot over.
Next to Dr.
Jen?
Nelson. Sure.
And I know
May I
as
scoot closer to you?
Notice he didn't say yes.
Sorry.
so what I will add is I was part of that process out there. Now I would be honest, I was a little bit out of my depth in that room because I'm not the technical expert on construction lingo that you guys were talking pre-construction, the estimation and stuff like that. But it was interesting to go through that process. It was a 2-day process, by the way, because it was an hour and a half for every one of the team that presented, question and answer sessions. Some went a little longer, and then we had at the end of the day to debrief, and I'm talking about the committee members itself having to debrief and take some breaks in between. So it was a 2-day rigorous, thorough process with questions prepared by the facilities team and getting to hear from each one of the vendors, and a lot of them brought like 6, 8, 10 people into the room going through that presentation. After a while, by the 6th presentation, like one presentation blended into another for me. So, but anyway, I will first go to, Principal Burke may be the one to talk because it's her school that was involved. A lot of the questions is going to be impacting her directly. Your thoughts on the process, any major takeaways? One of the things that was addressed is how will that construction team coordinate on a day-to-day basis with you and the safety of the students, because this is going to be construction in an occupied campus.
Great, so overall, I thought the process was really thorough and well-defined. I thought that the presentations that the different contractors came with were well done and very thoughtful. For me, right, a lot of the questions that were brought up by community members, like Dr. Malpacum, I'm not an expert in construction or occupied construction or any of those things, and so the questions that some of our community advisors were able to ask were insightful for me, not having gone through that before, and so that was really great. And for A&P, I just feel like there's a connection and that we'll work really well together. And you know, I thought that the debriefing process that the team went through that was there, and the pros, cons, all of the consensus making really drilled us down to pick the best team that we could possibly pick.
Mr. McCone.
You know, it was funny, as Jessica and I, we talked about this, they all sounded the same, for lack of a better way to say. So which gave me a great deal of confidence that the job was going to get done and get done well. You know, my primary concern, I had two really interests. My first interest was how well would this team work with the principal, and it was very apparent that there were some that were better than others, where you could just see that comfort. And then the second part was really, I wanted to understand what happens as the local community around the school begins to fatigue over time. You know, and Chris Jenkins had this analogy of the 400-day mark. What happens after 400 days where people are really getting tired in this project? And my concern was what happens with the downtown folks driving through this construction zone and all this after 400 days, and what's the cheerleading that's going to go on, you know, to keep the rest of the community enthused about it, especially the alumni, of which I am. And, you know, because I know that there's a lot of eager eyes. There are a lot of folks that really want to see this project come to fruition. So, you know, as I went through it, I understood very clearly that there were a number of very good companies involved in this, and I'm glad that I didn't have to be the one to pick it.
But your input was certainly taken into consideration.
Well, I appreciate that, but I mean, you know, I think that there really were some distinguishing elements on all of the presenters, and so that again just lent me with the idea that we're in good hands, ultimately. So the project will get done and it'll make for a nice school, and if it's not, then we'll find you.
Doug, do you have anything to add?
No, I think they both covered it. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, we're in good hands. Highly qualified companies, all brought different strengths and weaknesses to the process, and so yeah, I think we're very comfortable with the teams and the short list. There were several questions that were asked about all of the teams, and you know, as a firm that's 50 years old in Colorado Springs, we've worked with the majority of them, and so we understand their strengths and weaknesses like you've described, and it really came down to what's the best fit, you know, for this project, for this team, to get this project done. And so it was a good process, and I appreciate the effort that all the teams put in to come to the interview and share that vision with us during the process.
Any other district team, Dr. Weiss or Dr. Comfort, Superintendent Gall?
I'll just double down that the process ran nearly identical to the first process on how we brought in our design team. For those of you who don't understand how much of a time commitment that process is, it is to Jocelyn and Rosa for the work that has happened, and Chris gets credit for that as well as the chief, just with great intentionality and incredible organization, that every time I wanted to mess up all my papers, because that happens to be my style, they were all right back in my folder where they were supposed to be, and they were secured at the end of each session, and that where you know, it was completely transparent, completely above board, and very strongly nearly unanimous on the selection a recommendation that is brought to bear here today, which is hard to do at X number of presentations over Y number of hours. It says something about the process and the presentation. And also the existing relationship. The work that A&P has been doing for the district in the time that I've been here has been second to none, so we appreciate that.
Dr. Weiss or Dr. Comfort, anything else?
I'll echo what Mr. Abernathy said. I think we're just in general as a district thankful to everyone who put in a proposal because it was a rigorous process. There was a lot to consider, and everyone made a robust presentation. The district has not done something like this, well, I guess since 1939 when they rebuilt Palmer the first time, but the landscape is quite different and the people working in the district are quite different. And I think at the end of the day, such a monumental project that is new to so many of us requires a leap of trust. And given that many of the construction firms were wonderfully qualified, that intangible of who you can trust and who felt like the best match for the school, as Principal Burke said, just shone through, and we're appreciative for that.
And I will add, Ms. Olson, if you can go to slide number 9 out there. I'm pulling slide number 9 because these were the 6 construction companies that were the down selected. And when you look at these names, these are the best of the best in the country. Some of them are billion-dollar companies. So I first want to thank all these companies for taking the time to be involved in this District 11 project. So we had a highly competent and competitive process where some of the best construction companies applied and bidded for this project through this process. I know the board received some emails, so I will address those emails and the concerns that were brought in those emails. Two of the companies here had local roots and connections. They were located here in Colorado Springs. Several of the other companies have maybe not the local roots, but they have local offices and have been a strong presence in Colorado and Colorado Springs over the last several years. And in response to that the money stays for this project locally, Ms. Chief Odom talked about how the CMGC vendor is going to manage this overall contract, but a lot of the work is going to get subcontracted out, and at least 80% of that money is going to go to subcontractors with local El Paso County roots in it. Okay, and that was one of the things that we added, and A&P has provided that assurance that they will do that with the local subcontractors. And the other things, and I can say I'm not the technical expert on the construction side of it, so I was more looking into some of the intangibles that our different partners brought into that equation, and I was talking from that. But on the technical side of it, I relied more on the experts that were present in the room. And they were talking about the pre-construction phase and the construction phase and what qualifies and what are they looking for, in the superintendent that is going to be. By the way, the project manager for all these projects is called a superintendent as well. So in the discussion, we had like conversations about this superintendent is not very good at Superintendent Gall was pointing out like there's going to be a lot of confusion. They hear this tape, and they may, if there is a quota request, and we are talking about superintendents not being very experienced or not good. But that's the project construction lingo that they use. But several things went into consideration as they picked this, and I relied on the technical experts that were present in the room. And like Superintendent Gall said, the consensus with the team that was present was A&P out there. With that, I'm going to turn to the A&P team for your presentation, and then open it up for the board for questions as well. If you can introduce yourself and your team that's present here.
Sure. Yeah, we'll start with introductions. I'm Tony Cignelli. I'm Vice President of our Colorado Springs Region Office.
I'm Chris Meek, Construction Manager.
So Chris really manages kind of operations day-to-day for all Colorado Springs. We also have Seth Douglas and John Berglund. They're superintendents for the Palmer High School project. We have Mackenzie Sperling. She's the project manager for the Palmer High School project. Garrett Franklin is assistant project manager. He didn't come to the interview, but he's really interested in this project and so wanted to come to support. Christina Rudo is the estimator for the Palmer High School project. And then Jason Wolf. Jason? Jason's a project manager too, and he's not assigned to Palmer, but he's again interested in the region and here to support. So we've got,
one of you guys had students at Palmer, right? Which
Yes.
is it? You have
I do, yes.
right now.
Yes, my daughter goes to Henry.
Okay.
On the way to.
On the way.
On the way to Palmer,
right. He does not look that old.
We also have several team members who aren't here tonight, but one of them is Maggie Wilder, and she's a Palmer alum, and she'll be assigned to the project as well.
Yeah, she'll be our PEFE.
What is that?
What is that?
PEFE, Project Engineer, Field Engineer. So she'll be involved with helping us going through RFIs, submittals, working with the on-site team, working with the office team. She's going to be involved. She was also on student council, so she's going to be helping us be that liaison with the student council and making sure that we have open lines of communication. And we're building a robust project around student council and making sure that everybody's involved.
So we've got prepared is just some general information about us that Chris thought you guys might want to know that hasn't been in the package. So just some real quick facts. And she said not to be salesy, so I'm going to be as monotone as possible. So we're a national contractor. We've got offices in Colorado, Texas, Arizona, and Minnesota. We've been working here in Colorado for about 50 years. Our first project was in 1974. And our office has been established for over 40 years in Colorado. We're specialized in community builders, so most of our projects surround community type work, and a big portion of that's education. And so recently, I think Chris had that slide up there, but we're ranked the #1 education builder in the Mountain States region, which is Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. And we're typically up there, but #1 this year. Nationally, we're the #4 green educational builder, so throughout all those. And then Chris had these stats, but over the last 5 years, we've done over 159 K-12 projects, which is about $1.5 billion. And about $1 billion of that were high schools over the last 5 years. So we've been here in Colorado for about 40 years. We really started focusing in Colorado Springs in about 2020. I've lived here since 2008, and so this has been our community for a long time. But our company really started our focus when we joined El Paso County Contractors Association in 2020. We had some temporary workspaces at that time, but we got a real office lease about 18 months ago. And one of the things Chris will talk about a little later is that this is our community. There's a lot of us who have lived here for a long time. In the past 20 years, we've built some important projects like the Vandenberg Hall renovations at the Air Force Academy, a rec center at UCCS, some renovations for Pikes Peak BOCES down south there. We've done some skiff work at Fort Carson, tenant build-outs for St. Francis Hospital, some work for Amazon and other miscellaneous retail work around the area. And so that all equates to over $100 million in El Paso County. We currently have the D11 secure entrances, and we're appreciative of that. We also have some work for Widefield School District 3, an on-call contract there. And then we've got some work for Blue and Silver Development up at the True North Commons at the north gate of the visitor center. And we have other work outside of El Paso County, but southern Colorado. And in terms of the secure vestibules, so they're on budget and on schedule. And we've got 21 subcontracts. 90% of that subcontract cost is El Paso County subcontractors. And so when we were asked if we could make sure that 80% of that work goes, we're confident that we can. And we have done that on the last one.
97%.
Oh, is that, what did I say?
Yeah, 90.
Oh, 97. So Chris just wanted to talk a little bit about our involvement in the community.
Yeah, I mean, like what Tony said, we are and have been a part of this community for a long time. I mean, working in projects that Tony just rattled off for over 20 years now. This team's really excited about Palmer High School, but I think we're more excited to give back to our community. I had some facts about our specific team on the job, but we talked about John. He's one of the superintendents. He's got 4 children in the D11 school district. We talked about Maggie Wilder, Palmer alum, and also on the student council who will be heavily involved in the project. Mackenzie, our project manager, graduated from Air Academy. Jason Wolf, that we introduced earlier, has lived here in Colorado Springs for 20 years. Tony had mentioned he's been here for 16 years. I also live here in Colorado Springs. We also have multiple superintendents and carpenters that live in the community that we're not going to go through and rattle off everybody. But another fun fact of being local and being part of the community is we were just nominated as one of the best workplaces to work for here in Colorado Springs. We support a lot of local fundraisers, a lot of community charities. I won't go through and rattle them all off, but one of the things I am proud of is we were one of the only general contractors that stepped up just last weekend and was one of the top donors for the Veterans Day Parade. I was really proud of that. We were able to see that and help get that to come to fruition.
Did anybody see the news on that? Because they panned across Chris and he
Yeah, it looked like I was picking my nose, but I was picking my nose. I also wanted to touch base. It is also extremely important for us to continue that 97% and include our local subcontractors. We refer to them as our trade partners. And we have got a really proven plan that when we get on these projects, we have open houses, multiple open houses. We encourage the support of D11 at these open houses and also with RTA. We will advertise in the local media, the newspapers, informing everybody of when we're having open houses to make sure that every local trade partner that wants to have a part or be a part of this project will be. So typically we'll team up with a local business partner. We'll identify a couple different days. We'll open it up. We'll have people come out. If Doug is willing to share some plans and overviews of like just getting that excitement, getting people talking about wanting to be a part of the project. We kind of go through and walk them through our pre-qualification process to make sure that they're financially stable, that the resources are available, that the project can be on schedule, and we can talk about just lead times for equipment and stuff like that. We'll go through this multiple times to make sure that there's a very exciting buzz within the community, knowing that they can have and be a part of the project. So that's just one of the many things that we will do for this team. It's kind of a high-level overview, but.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you need to add, Ms. Chief Order? Okay, with that, I'll open it up for the board for questions and feedback at this time. Director Rock.
Thank you. I appreciate your discussing what's local and how many of you are local, because you may know we've certainly got several emails on that, and people have reached out to me to express the concern about our D11 dollars, from taxes are not going to be kept locally. That is a concern. So it sounds like many of them will. The other concern, we're voting on this tonight, and maybe somebody from administration can address why it has to be tonight when we don't get any, we don't have the opportunity for public comment, and we normally would do something like that as an action item, but with the opportunity.
We can comment on the reason for tonight. I'll let the board discuss whether or not it wants public comment. That's not for us. You want to talk just a little bit, Chris, about the original design build, the switch to design, and then I believe the original desire was within 60 days to have the general contractor on contract, which has us slightly behind that schedule. Is that not right?
Correct. We're already a little bit behind. Getting the phase 1 effort is what you're approving tonight. And because this project has so much public view and public input and eyes, we didn't need to bring it to the board for board approval for $127,000 because that's what you're approving. But we wanted to be as transparent as possible. We are behind getting this help to Doug to meet his deadlines to get to Jen Hoteling a estimated master plan. And that's what A&P is going to bring to the So the reason why we're bringing it is for that phase 1 only. We will come back for the build, the potential 85 million, because we set a budget. The guaranteed maximum price will not exceed 85 million. So,
And
does
this is
that
phase
help?
one.
This is phase one. We'll come back to you for phase two. Typically, when we do this type of contract method, we only come to you for the phase two. You know, I come up and say, this is the guaranteed maximum price, we've done a phase one, we're da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We're including you in that process because of the magnitude of community involvement.
I'll address the public comment portion of it. You heard from Chief Odom about the time constraint. And first, this was not going to be on the board agenda because they had the ability for that 127,000 portion of it. That doesn't need to have the board approval. But once this contract is awarded to a vendor for phase one, that's the same vendor that's going to get phase two. We are not going to be able to come at a later point in time, a year down the road. So we wanted to be transparent in that process to have this come in front of the board, and the board gets an opportunity to listen to this. The community gets an opportunity to listen to this. As far as the public comments portion of it goes, usually special meetings, we have conducted in a way where we didn't have public comments, but that's the same feedback I got from a couple of community members today, and I talked to Ms. Olson about it. So if it is the board's will that future special meetings, especially if it's got an action item that hasn't come in front of the board previously, maybe we had public comments, but still the community members had an opportunity to provide feedback to the board through email, through other opportunities. But I do, understand that some community members would prefer to be here at a board meeting and share it in a public environment, and that will certainly be taken into consideration as we set the agenda going forward. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions at this time, Director Knowles?
Just a comment that I want the best for our students. So this hyper focus on local, if the best person is in Pueblo or Woodland Park, go with them. I'm not sure if that's in the contract that we have to have up to 80%, but just that would be my guidance. I hear that through this RFP process, we hired the best. And so I want to continue that. And I personally try to support local when we can, but I'm thinking about the outcome in the end, and that's more important to me.
That's coming from a Palmer alumni.
I guess I graduated from Palmer.
And that's, I think, that's a feedback that Chris can address. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be brief. We're gonna put a goal of 80% in the contract for it to be local business. But if the situation comes up where it's gonna significantly impact cost or schedule, we're gonna bring it to the district, the procurement and capitals team to say, would you rather go here and save X dollars or X time? And then we'll have some sort of a rationale approval process in case we need to answer to the board or the board is answering to community members.
I just want to keep in mind what our purpose here as a school district is not to support local business necessarily. We're here to educate children and provide an excellent learning environment, and hopefully that does support local business. But there's often things that we are at a national level having to seek out supports. And so that's just the nature of the business.
And public comments and emails are directed to
If you're the best, we'll hire you.
Director Nelson out there. No,
I think I think you'll be able to have your cake and eat it too. There's a lot of really good contractors here.
And I have family that are in this business, so I know that to be true.
I think, you heard the gist of it, but you have worked with us previously with the secure entryway projects, and you said 90% of that is local, and I've gone through some of those construction in our schools and how that has turned out, and that was really great work that you guys did, quality work that you guys did with local subcontractors. So I'm sure you will balance all those things out as you go through this process.
My point is, I don't want us to get distracted and keep focused on what we're really trying to accomplish.
You good, Director Nelson? Okay, any other comments, Director?
I forgot what I hope to be my standard question. Does anyone in the district have any financial interest in this particular company?
So can you explain for the public how the vendors have to make financial disclosure? And can anybody, you might also be you as well, to also share that senior level employees are always subjugated to those same financial disclosures? This is the second time a question's come up tonight that I think is starting to challenge either the integrity of senior staff or vendors that come to the table. And I know we have processes in place, so can you at least explain the vendor half of this?
Sure, hopefully I'll alleviate any questions. Procurement ethics and procurement code and policy DJ do ask that we have any integrity issues when we do procurements like this. We all have to sign documents that say and ask that, do you have any financial interests in these companies? Every time we do an RFP and every time there's an evaluation, there's a document that we sign. And Director Bankus and Director Heffley and Director Nelson, you've done RFPs with us. You've signed those documents indicating when we're in that particular process, we don't have financial interest or family members that work for these companies. If you do, we have a process we have to vet through that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
I didn't have that question, but I appreciate the explanation for the public.
You answered my ask. Thank you, Chief Odo.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board members, Director Heffley? Anything?
No, my only question was how much of this is local, and 2 thumbs up to that answer. So thank you.
Anything from any of the other board members that didn't ask any questions? I don't see anything at this point in time. So thank you for being here. It's as has been discussed out here and as it was discussed even in those interview process, there is going to be a lot of public eye on this being a downtown project at the very center. Our business community downtown, our political elected leaders downtown, the city council, the mayor's office, all of them are going to have eyes on this project. So I'm glad that you guys have that construction experience in K-12 education, and you're going to bring that. So hopefully the expectation is that you guys complete this project really well. And one of the other things is that this is from the board level could potentially be a stepping stone for a future bond that a future board may go to the community. So this has to really come out well. When we have that ribbon cutting ceremony at the end of it, then we can assure our citizens that the taxpayer dollars were spent well for creating a future, innovative learning environment for our students. And we can assure them, and that will hopefully propel a future bond project. So on time, on budget, we look forward to several presentations and interactions with you going forward. Thank you, and thank you for all the rest of you guys being here as well. Okay. You have any closing thoughts?
No supplementary.
Okay, thank you. With that, we are at the end of this work session portion, and we will start our special meeting out there and then take a break before we go down to executive session.
Great job.
We will call the special meeting for Wednesday, November 13, 2024 to order at 6:55 p.m. Ms. Olson, roll call, please.
Director Bankus? Here. Director Carey? Here. Director Hinckley?
Here.
Director Jorgensen? Present. Director Malpacum?
Here.
Director Nelson? Here. Director Ott?
Here.
All 7 board members are present in person. Please join me as we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Director Bankus, can you please make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I move that the Board of Education adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Bankus?
Aye.
Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hinckley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Malpacum?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
You got all 7 board members.
Thank you.
Though not in the alphabetical order, but you got them.
Perfect.
The agenda was adopted as presented. We do have one action item today. Director Ott, can you please make the motion for action item B1?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education approves contract 2025-1001 to Adolfson and Peterson in the amount of $127,500 for Phase 1 pre-construction consulting services in partnership with the RTA Perkins Eastman Design Team. This is the initial phase of the construction management general contractor contract. The period of performance will begin on November 14th, 2024, with an estimated completion date of October 31st, 2025, to deliver a guaranteed maximum price for the Phase 2 build.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Board, we had an extensive discussion on this contract award and the RFP process. At the work session preceding this special meeting, so you had an opportunity to engage with the A&P team, which is present in the audience, and had some of the questions answered. So to community who are tuning into this meeting, please refer to that work session for an extensive discussion on what was presented at that time. Superintendent Gall, any additional information do you want to add?
No further information at this time.
Okay, thank you. Board, before I roll call, anything that you want to add? I see Director Ott. There you go, Director Ott.
Thank you. I do want to note, I had concerns about the lack of public comment for the meeting and considered voting no for that. The timeline, I understand, was somewhat crunched, and so I will just say in the future, maybe we can strive somehow to ensure that we are open to public comment. But as we discussed, we certainly had email responses, as well as people reaching out individually, which they are welcome to do. Thank you.
Appreciate your feedback, and that will certainly be taken into consideration as we go through future special meetings, especially in this environment where we have only one board meeting a month at this time. You have special meetings that come up, and we will ensure that public comments are added when new agenda items come in front of the board. Any other? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Bankus? Aye. Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hinckley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen? Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The contract was awarded, and to the A&P team, thank you for being here. Congratulations. We look forward to this partnership going forth. And to our facilities team that put a considerable amount of time and effort into this, thank you for your work. Moving on, we do have executive session at this time. Director Carey, can you please make the motion to move into executive session?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education convenes into executive session to discuss legal advice per CRS 24-6-402 4B, particular matter, Colorado Springs Education Association, Educational Support Professionals, and Executive Professional Employee Group Handbooks and Contracts.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Director Bankus? Aye. Director Carey?
Aye.
Director Hazley?
Aye.
Director Jorgensen?
Aye.
Director Malpaka?
Aye.
Director Nelson?
Aye.
Director Ott?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We will enter into executive session. And if it is necessary, we'll reconvene in the boardroom after executive session. If not, we will adjourn from executive session. Thank you.